Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to a historic night on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott, host of the Tinfoil Show here, and we are getting deep into the UFO hearings tonight. We got an amazing panel tonight. Dr. Bob McGuire, a.k.a. Science Bob, is here. Researcher Chris Rutkowski, researcher Melinda Leslie, and researcher Courtney Marchesny is here. She is actually at the hearings today. It's going to be amazing. Dirty Filth is here with another great cartoon and all of you. So let's get things going right off the bat. We got Race Fan in the gold medal position. So Cheeto Paez Richards with a silver. Kathy Evans, a nice bronze medal tonight. JSCO, Michael Morris. Groza, welcome to SOR Chat. Raymond L. is here. Raymond L. will be signing autographs after the show. Light up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Dino Bravo, Donna L., Robert Lamoth, Lisa C., Ruth Kleber, welcome to SOR Chat. Blue Sky, welcome to SOR Chat. Andrew Reed, how you doing? Luscious Jules, good to see you. Hi, _ Maddie and Mothman. Good to have them both here. Cashew, thanks for coming on in. Hi, Stephen Finnegan, good morning to you. T-Bone, what's happening? Eric Austin, thanks for coming on in. Brooke Ehrenberg Doty, welcome to SOR Chat. Patrick Lamb, thank you for joining us. Max Ritchie, good to have you back. Let's continue on. Mama Catherine, mwah! Love you, my dear. Hope you're having a wonderful night. This is going to be a good show just for you. Okay, here we go. Dark Protocol, thank you for coming on in. And Peter Thorgerson, good to have you back. Noodles, nice to have you here. Noble Patrick, thank you for joining us. And who else do we got here? Rob G, what's happening, man? And let's see who else we have. Bigfoot Rob and Tim Othman. Your goatee is fantastic. All right, continuing on. We have to say hello to Sandra Kincaid. And who else do we get to say hello to? Number 21 in your program, starting at right wing from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. Put up 58 points in 36 games last year, by the way. Jessica, good to see you. And who else is joining us? Nikki in Seattle, just another guy named Harry. And Richard Elmore, how you doing? Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. JMJ12, welcome to SOR Chat. Dave Walters, how you doing? Thomas Rock, The Fifth World, good to have you both here. Moving on, Gizmo, my man. Gansfeld, Study of UAPs, welcome to SOR Chat. And let's continue on here saying hello. Alex Sanchez, good to see you. Pink Volo, friend of Squirrel. Monica S. Vermette, good to have you all here. Night Gazer, thank you for joining us. The Super Chat is open. Forrest Louie, thank you so much for kicking it off tonight. We very much appreciate your continued love and support nightly here on Spaced Out Radio. All right. Let's get the radio side going, by the way, so that way we can let Bill WD40 into the chat room to lube us up for tonight's show. All right, super crazy. Ozzy, Pam Harris, Nick Adkins, good to have you all here. Philip Baca, Peppa H, Paramarv, nice to see you. Hi, Alien Critter, and Android Paranormal, good to see you. Vanessa, thanks for coming on in. Hi, Crystal J, Toothbrush, Blue Cruise, Mac Geek, Nina Williams, SJ. Been a while. Good to have you back. Dr. Robert Steers, how you doing? You should be on this panel tonight, Doc. Yeah, you should be. And thank you so much for that lovely super chat, my man. Very much appreciate your love and support of SOR. Jeremy Jones, 405er. How you doing? Let's see if we can get this done here. We got 25 seconds. Corruption Czar, thank you for coming on in. And Paul Holland, Paul Holland, strum away for us, my man. Strum away. Continuing on, Ozzy Sue, Christopher in Texas, good to see you. Science Melinda, James, Friday the 13th, nice to have you here. Mr. E, welcome back. Jeremy Jones, thank you for the super chat. Horns up, let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We have a power show for you tonight as we are coming off a legendary day in Washington, D.C., where the latest UFO hearings have been held. There is some good news. There's some bad news. There's no news. It's a mixture of absolutely everything. We are going the distance with this show tonight, and wherever it takes us. At the end of the show, probably in hour number 3, if we have time, we're going to take some of your questions and calls if you want to call on in, and we'll get you that link later on in the show. But first, let's introduce today's panel, because this is a panel of extreme experience, and one person actually attended the hearings. So let's get right to it. We have Dr. Bob McGuire. We call him Science Bob around here. Canadian researcher, author, and a man who has a great set of hair underneath his CCM helmet. We have Chris Rakowski. Melinda Leslie here, researcher, author, experiencer, and Courtney Marchesny, who was at the hearing earlier today. And Courtney, I want to start with you on this, because I think it's really important to get a feel for what the atmosphere was like going into this hearing, because it was just yesterday where everything seemed A-okay. We're going to see what happens. And then all of a sudden, boom, in the afternoon, it hits that Tim Burchett, the congressman of Tennessee, was not going to be the chair. Somebody else was going to be the chair. And I think all of ufology kind of went, uh-oh, what is going on here?
Yeah, it was kind of shocking, because he's been such a huge proponent and pushing things forward, talking to witnesses. And there are a lot of different theories about why he was informed that he needed to step down. And nobody knows. But I heard one theory that it was possibly because he took a witness testimony and he was involved in that directly. And so that was one of the reasons why he was removed. But I don't know if that's the truth or not.
So what was the atmosphere like today, this morning, before the hearing? Fill us in.
It was incredible. I mean, some people, friends of ours, of Bob and Melinda's, were there at 3 a.m. in the morning and waiting in the hallway outside the doorway. I went in through the tunnels with Danny Sheehan and Steve Bassett, and that was pretty incredible, walking behind them. I mean, it was just like, I'm with the band, like it was incredible. It was surreal. And then when we came in, people were clapping for Danny Sheehan and Steve Bassett, and it was just palpable. It was a crackly atmosphere, because everybody had been there waiting already for like 3 or 4 hours by the time that we got there at 7 to 8 in the morning. So it was just incredible. And then more and more people kept showing up trying to get in line, and there was no way that they were going to get in, because they cut it off at probably like 45 people. And it was mostly press who got in. And of course, legacy people who have been involved with this from the beginning in the grassroots, legally. Leslie King was in there, other mutual friends. And it was just exciting. It was very exciting. And there was a lot of applause and cheer for people who have been here all the way through.
Well, I want to hear more of this story coming up here, but I want to get our other guests involved too. Science Bob, AKA Dr. Bob McGuire. I want to bring you in here for a moment because today it just seemed different. It seemed that there was, for the last 3 hearings that we've had, we could call it what it was, a bunch of nothing burgers. And for some reason, I think everybody went into this one thinking it would be a 4th nothing burger in a row, but we actually had some movement towards getting a little bit of answers here. Bob, what was your thoughts on today's proceedings?
So there are a lot of details, but I want to give you the big picture from the perspective of a member of the intelligence community and a person who worked in that community for a long time. I'll give you that perspective. Today, we learned we have aliens. We learned we have alien craft. We learned that we murdered people. We learned that we have a hidden program. We learned all of that from a man who would lose his life if he told a lie. He was under oath. He was never going to lie. I've met him. He sat right in front of me and Melinda at a table in Huntsville, and they tried to get me to work with them and using Hawkeye 360, but I was unable to do that. So I didn't know who he was. But when he came out, I remembered that he had been sitting in front of us in Huntsville. So this guy is a Boy Scout. One of the things he testified to that I've been saying and people kept doubting me, he testified today under oath that he had done presidential daily briefings from the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. You don't get near the president of the United States if you're a goofball. You just don't, unless you're, a different kind of president. Okay, so look, it was just a big deal. Well, every one of them under oath. The pilots told first perspective, and they went further than I think they've ever been before. We learned that Graves met with a bunch of contractors and Air Force people from Vandenberg Air Force Base, and what did they see? A red craft the size of a football field that came from the ocean, held itself over the base, over a launch pad. And the Air Force didn't fire a thing at them, and they turned around and left without anybody doing anything, ever saying anything, no press covers, no claims. These are big things, and they are under oath. They all stood up at the beginning, raised their hand, and swore an oath. And these are Boy Scouts. They're former Navy pilots, and they were commanders. And one of them was a captain in the Air Force, and then a highly ranked, highly valued member of the intelligence community. These people are not coming in there to lie. Today was a whole lot more than a nothing burger.
All right, Chris Rakowski, I know you came in with some sentiments of not knowing what to really expect and not wanting or not thinking we would expect much. Maybe give a counter perspective of what you saw and what you didn't see today that you would have liked to have seen.
Well, boy, oh boy. Yeah, I have a somewhat different perspective on this. It's true, absolutely true. These are people who, held up their hands and they swore their oath, and, they're not going to lie. And I don't think that any of them lied. I think that they were told a bunch of stuff that may have been lies, but they themselves didn't lie. And as far as not lying under oath, we know that no one in Congress or any politicians ever lie under oath. That would be completely impossible. And I've never heard that happen before. So come on, give me a break. But having said that, it was actually quite interesting to hear. I mean, we've heard these stories before. I mean, Grush himself had told these stories, like you say, about a year ago, if not more. He told it to Greer. He told it to, a number of other people. And some of the other stuff we've heard going back years now. And these events go back, many, many years. So we've heard this stuff before, but what the significance was, this was being told in a forum very, very different from the UFO community, from UFO conferences and so forth. Very different from doing a media interview. This was something before the House Oversight Committee, not written into the congressional record as such, but into the proceedings of this particular subcommittee, which makes it on the record. So it sort of behooves the politicians to actually do something now. So we've heard the stories before, and whether they're true or not, we don't know. But when Grush says he'll be able to tell people things, in a skiff or private meetings, that's what we want. But if it's only in private meetings, it's not going to do us any good. We want to hear the details. Where are these UAPs that the government has? Who told them? Who are the people who are being threatened, and who's doing the threatening? So we want to know that. And so there's an onus on the politicians now to pass some legislation to give whistleblowers a little more protection, and to move forward. If there's funds being misappropriated, that's very, very serious, involving criminal investigations. So let's move forward. This is just the first step, and I look forward to what's coming next.
I do too, and I think we have to draw a line here. I mean, there was a lot of things like Chris said, who we need to question. There needs to be a lot more questions answered, and a lot of those answers came behind closed doors once again, which is the frustrating part for us who are doing the hard boots on the ground research, like Melinda Leslie here. Melinda, I know you were jumping for joy. You said you had a couple of tears shed earlier today. What was so emotional about this hearing for you?
Good question. First off, I'm probably going to agree slightly more here with Bob. That's not surprising. But Chris, I do think I agree with the second half of what you said very, very much. But that's all right. Hey, that's, we're all researchers in this, and we're all sincerely interested in the truth. Oh gosh. Well, okay. I was going to get into this later, but since the way you just asked me, Dave, I was really moved for a number of reasons. First off, the overall historicness of this. There was only 2 times where I was maybe moved to tears a little bit. But I think as I thought about it later throughout the day, if anything, I became a little more emotional about it. Again, not so much moved to tears, but just really the impact took a while to kind of sink in. Certainly, the historic meaning of this, I've been in the field for 35 years. I know some of you have probably as long. And it's just, this hadn't happened before in history, not in ufology history, not in the history of the U.S. I mean, yeah, had there been other hearings, but with witnesses, with high-level witnesses testifying under oath. I mean, and I thought so the first thing that moved me a little bit to tears was the moment when they were sworn in. I just thought that the gravitas of that moment, they were being sworn in. It just hit me like, oh my God, we're really here. And these guys are getting sworn in, and knowing something about these 3 people, knowing what they had been through. I mean, I'm a unique position in the field that I've really closely followed all this. I mean, I'm sure most everyone on here has, and certainly probably quite a few people listening. But I just had been followed it so much. I'd recently done a couple major presentations at conferences about exactly everything going on, and so I felt like, and one of these witnesses I'd met before, one I'd kind of loosely met, and one of them I definitely had met. And I just kind of felt like, wow, I'm just moved by these guys and the risks that they took and what it meant for them to do that. I think they're heroes. And I'll just, I'm proud of them. And so that movement moved me. And then I think I got moved. I can't remember the exact other moment, but it was much later in the hearing. I think the line of questionings, and I think it was, I was really taken back. I'm sure we're going to get to this, two of the guest representatives, one of them who I would normally no way on earth agree with in most circumstances ever, but I was quite taken back by his personal testimony. Some people are calling him, early before this happened, I got a strong psychic inclination there might be another witness. Well, someone else who had heard me say that texted me today and said, that was Matt. He was the fourth witness. And I went, oh my God. Yeah. Because in many ways he was, because he testified to going to the base and what he saw there. And it was a testimony of his own experience of doing that. And rather moving at that. And then the other, I forgot his name. Bob or someone can help me out. I want to say Oogie. What's his name?
Yeah, Ogle. O-G-L-E. Yep.
Yeah.
Ogle.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got it. Yep.
Okay, thank you. I know I was close. Unfortunately, I didn't. Okay, but Ogle, and I should know who the reps are, but I'm good about some of them, but not about others. But I was moved as well by what he said at the end, because it was such a forceful, like, we got to take action. We got to do this. We got to call for having the skiff. We got all this legal stuff to deal with. There's going to be legislation right away. It was just that call to action that told me, yeah, these guys are going to move forward with this. I mean, I knew that already, but his forcefulness in stating that, I think, hit me, on an emotional level, like, this is what we hoped for. This would push things forward, and to hear him state it so absolutely. And so, anyways, I thought the whole thing, I could go on and on and on. I thought the whole thing was amazing. I thought it was mind blowing. I thought it was historic, absolutely huge. And then there are highlight moments without a doubt overall. But, I went in cautiously optimistic. I didn't go in thinking, oh, this is going to be great. If anything, I had deep concerns. And those were just laid to rest because it turned out much better than I thought it was going to be. And again, those closing statements and stuff about them moving forward. One thing that was really rewarding to me was seeing all these reps looked really pissed off by everything. I thought they're not hiding their emotions. They're really pissed about what they're hearing. And to me, that was a good sign, like they're going to move forward with this. So again, I think that's kind of some of the stuff that got to me emotionally. And then Dave, the bottom line answer to your question there is, as an experiencer, and I'll get more into that later, as an experiencer, someone with contact, this whole thing was almost overwhelming for that reason.
The first time that we've actually seen the extraterrestrial side kind of come into this, even though David Grush the last time talked about it in front of the media. I mean, but that's still a very generalized new topic for everything. But I want to get to the emotions going into this. I referenced Tim Burchett, prior to this as a hockey player who was about to drop the gloves. He seemed so pissed off at the way this cover-up had been going, Courtney, and the way that everything had been planned. A lot of politicians will talk tough before going into hearings, and then they fold right before the cameras are on, and then they bring on that attitude of, I'm a politician, I don't have to say anything, I'm just going to squelch my way out of here. That didn't seem to happen. We finally saw a lot of emotion, especially through David Grush's testimony, where a lot of these politicians, didn't matter what side of the ledger they were on, Republican or Democratic, they seemed to be very, very concerned about the way this whole UFO story has been playing out. Never mind the fact of the words that Grush was playing, but just at the attitudes of people within the alphabet agencies and the military itself and the military contractors who may be hiding things from the American public. What was your thoughts on that, Courtney?
Well, I have been watching Burchett for a while. We all have, right? We knew that he did a meeting down in, I think it was Richmond, right, Bob, last year around this time, where he invited a select group of people to come and kind of did a soft kind of launch about his political advocacy and things that he was working on in this field. And so it's watching the way the man walks, right? Not just the way that he talks. And so he has been doing work, and he has been out in the community talking about this. So he was obviously somebody we were all watching. But I thought that he didn't mince words. He was very clear. He went and he asked repeated questions to get to the heart of the matter, even though Grush had already done a lot of answering to the questions in the News Nation media interview with Ross Coulthart, but he continued to ask. So I thought that was good that he didn't give up, and he emphasized for the audience and for the American public what to focus on. So I pulled a few things out, and I had a few takeaways that I wanted to give you just quickly from the beginning, hearing it and, pulling some sound bites out, but also, just for everybody to be validated, especially as experiencers and people who have been in the field. So over 20% of Americans have reportedly seen a UFO. 68% of people believe the government is hiding information about UFOs and UAPs. Half of all Americans believe the government is doing a bad job or a fair job dealing with the UFO sightings. And one of the other ones, the sound bites that I thought was really interesting, was the former director of national intelligence, John Radcliffe, who said that in a Fox interview that Burchett, pulled out, that the former director said the U.S. government is aware of a lot more sightings of UAP that have not been made public. And so I think that lead off that Burchett gave, the statistics citing, how much interest and how many people believe that the government is failing at this, was really taken seriously. And I think that was woven through the entire hearing.
I thought that was quite important too. But the thing that attracted me to it is the names. The names of the politicians that were there. Okay, normally we get secondary politicians on this, but to have AOC there, to have Matt Gaetz there, it was an eclectic group of politicians coming together for UFOs of all topics. Science Bob, I know you're a Democrat at heart. That you have Joe Biden pajamas on underneath your clothes right now. I get that. Okay, but tell me, let's talk politics here for a second. Okay, let's talk politics here for a second. Very rarely in recent history have we seen bipartisan concern about what's going on, and here we are over UFOs over the whole topic.
The thing is so amazing, Dave, is each of them on both sides know for a fact that they can say what's in their heart and in their minds, and the other side is not going to snipe at them to the press because they're all in it together. They are really all in. Let me say, I'm going to take off my Biden hat and put on my UFO Science Bob hat. My favorite testimony was the official breaking of his security oaths and the release of classified information by Matt Gaetz.
Yeah, me too.
It was amazing. He literally broke the law, because I assure you that general and everybody at that Air Force base did not release that stuff to be talked about. And he just bulldozed his way in and told everyone about it. And so he
how about being denied a skiff, Bob? Did you hear that they were denied a skiff?
I know about that. The general acted like a jerk, and he had his head handed to him by the House Armed Services Committee. So on Burchett, let me explain just a little bit of the politics of how this stuff works.
20 seconds.
Okay.
20 seconds, then we got to go to break.
The head of the subcommittee always has first rights to be the chairman of any hearing like this. And when he heard how popular it was, he says, oh no, Burchett's not going to do this. I'm going to do it. It'll help me with my reelection.
All right.
We're
going to continue on here on Spaced Out Radio after this break. When we get back, the power of Matt Gaetz and his potential breaking the law. David Grush, his testimony got more powerful. What were Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp doing there? We'll find out from this great panel on Spaced Out Radio on the UFO hearings. We have 295 people watching right now, and thank you so much for that. If you're new here, please understand we are a hybrid of a live radio show combined with a live YouTube channel and a live podcast. So we have to take commercial breaks every 30 minutes for our radio audience, so that way they can get their station identification and news, sports, and weather in. But you get to see behind the scenes of what we do here and the conversation that continues. So thank you so much. If you're new here, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell. It would mean a lot to us as we work hard for you 7 days a week right here on the channel. So thank you so much. And, I don't really want to get too much into what Gaetz and them said right now, but I don't know, guys. I'm still in dazed and confused.
Oh, no, Dave. You need to talk about what Gaetz said. What he said was
Bob,
he
we
saw
will after
stuff.
the break. Bob, we will after the break.
I see. You meant back in the show. Yeah. We don't.
Yeah.
Yes, we definitely want to talk about what Gaetz said because it was huge.
Yeah, and Chris, I'm not going to ask this during the live show, but I'll ask you right now from a Canadian perspective. You've been following it on the Canadian side. I've been following it on the Canadian side. We've had a number of chats together recently. How do you think this is going to affect what we heard today from what we're hearing out of Ottawa?
Well, today for the American friends, today was actually a momentous day in Canada because the Minister for Public Safety, Marco Mendocino, was removed from office, and we actually have a new defense minister, Anita Anand, who told Larry Maguire, the MP in Canada, who sort of broke the silence about UAP. She's gone now, and we have a new defense minister. So there will be a briefing that's going to happen over the next month or two for a new defense minister about UAP, and it'll be interesting to find out exactly how that defense minister is briefed, what's going to be said, and what of today is going to be mentioned to that particularly new defense minister. So it's actually quite curious to see what's going to happen.
That's wonderful.
You think you'll be called? I know you've talked to many other MPs over the years. Do you expect a phone call on that?
It would be nice if I did. I know that they've dropped my name in the briefings before, so it's very possible that they're going to mention me, and it's going to have to play out somehow. So the new person's going to have to be brought up to speed very, very quickly, I think.
Well, I hope you'll throw your leash west a little bit, so that way I can grab it and put it on my collar and tag along with you, my friend.
Yeah,
well, look, you were the sync for all the UFO reports for the longest time. How can they not call you?
They forget. All I did was make one phone call, and I've been dropped like a hot potato since then.
Oh wow.
Yeah. No, and there is some pretty relevant Canadian stuff, and I can get to that when our radio audience joins too, because there's some very interesting points that are very relevant because, and I've made the point before, Canada might have been ahead of the curve on all this terms of pilots and in terms of reporting systems. So we can talk a little bit more about that at one point.
Which reminds me, I need to have a private conversation with you. I think I got reached out to.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and I got to actually talk to you about that to see if you know any of the names.
Okay.
Yeah, that this has all happened within like the last 36 hours.
All right. Things are happening fast and furious.
Yeah. So I'm not going to give any detail on that right now, but that's okay. Let's say hello to Scrub-a-Dub-Dub. Well, I'm just trying to get caught up in the chat room. Chill Farm Brisbane, how are you? And yeah. Oh, Kim Jellin, don't take the money, Dave. Oh, Canada, there is no money. It all goes to Justin. You know what? I think we may, after what happened the last 24 hours politically, we may be banking on an election soon.
Mm-hmm.
I hope. All right. We got 20 seconds. Thank you to our super chatters with the hat trick. Louis, Robert, Jeremy, Stephen, Pam H, Boo, Kira, Ken, and Jeremy times, I think 3 now. Yeah, you got a hat trick too, Jeremy. Thank you. Debster, Gizmo, Mennonite, Abe, Lori, and W. Decker. And here we go with the second half hour. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. We're talking UFOs tonight. Hope you're enjoying the chat. My name is Dave Scott, and we're glad you are here. Reminder that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We got a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go with a super panel tonight looking into the UFO hearings from earlier today. It's been absolutely crazy, and we're bringing it all to you. Joining us, researcher Melinda Leslie, researcher, author up in Canada, Chris Rutkowski, Science Bob McGuire, a.k.a. Dr. Bob McGuire, and Courtney Marchesny, who was at the hearings today. We're so glad to have you here. By the way, Dan Warren from the Fifth Pillar of Emphasis on YouTube, he was at the hearings as well today. He wanted to come into the show tonight, but he texted me right before the show and said, Dave, I'm exhausted. It's been a long day. He goes, do you mind if I sleep this one out? So we said, not a problem, Dan, but he owes us one. He knows he owes us one, so we'll get him back. All right, let's start off with Republican Matt Gaetz. Now, this guy is a big mouth. I think the only thing he has going for him besides the size of his mouth is his fantastic hairdo, because you know he's putting in some serious Brill cream to hold that together. But on a serious note, the blustery Gaetz, I didn't think that he had any interest in UFOs, Bob. And
we
yet
were wrong.
Boy,
we were wrong.
What happened?
He had a bunch of naval aviators come into his office and complain, and so he demanded a briefing from the brigadier general that runs the Air Force base there in the Panhandle of Florida. So he went in, he Burchett and Luna, and he went in, and the general said he's not going to tell anything to these two goofballs, Burchett and Luna, and wanted to throw them out and tell Gaetz. They all took him to the cleaners with the House Armed Services Committee chair, who blew him out through the Pentagon. Okay, so Gaetz comes into the hearing, and he describes a craft flying in formation and radar detail pictures, and every bit of that stuff is classified. If one of those Navy pilots or Grush had said all that, they would be met at the door by an FBI agent with an arrest warrant. Okay, so he's a congressman. He did it in a hearing, and there is just no way they can touch him. So we got some great stuff out of Gaetz. That's the first thing I think he's done for me since he's been in there.
And that's why I said he was the fourth witness, because
he was amazing.
Yeah, I thought he was speaking as the fourth witness. I mean, you know, people talk about what's the evidence hands-on for him to say, I saw it, I went in there, you know, I met with one. He said he met with one of the pilots and got the account, you know, and it was an amazing story, and it looked to me like he was fidgeting through the whole hearing, like he was working up, you know, to saying that. I thought he's nervous for a reason, and he's looking, and I think he kept looking at Burchett like, should I? You know, I mean, I swear I'm like, he's gonna say something, and sure enough, then he did, but he took it even further than I think I would have dreamt he could have. So yeah, the fact he was breaking the law didn't really dawn on me, but as you say that, I'm like, yeah, he was. But
the thing I was amazed.
He did it in a hearing, and he had the clearance, which is why they were going to let him in the room and not the others, is because he had the clearance. So, you know,
right. But who sent him the information? They broke the law first, right?
Actually, he can take testimony from them because he's on the House Armed Services Committee and the Government Oversight Committee, and he has clearance. But they're all cleared by their election. What they need is an assignment from the House that gives them need to know. That's the two keys. One is you're a good person. The second is you have a need to know. And so Burchett and Luna don't have a need to know because they haven't had that assignment, but they got it before the day was over.
Well, they got it though, because he said that his office received a protected disclosure from Eglin Air Force Base that about a UAP incident that required his attention. So he asked for a briefing, and so he brought along Burchett and Luna, and they were shown this information. And so there, for me, despite the fact that they have a clearance, whoever had sent them the protected disclosure, despite the fact that he's, is in that position, that person, I'd like to know who that is, or we all would like to know who that is, because we really need to know a little bit more about this. Because if people from Air Force bases can send information fairly freely from the sounds of it, then that's a step in the right direction too, isn't it?
I think the NDAA that was passed in 2022 allows that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That was my assumption. That very thing was my assumption of how that happened.
Let's get to David Grush here momentarily. Yes. Courtney, I want to start with you here because, first off, what was the reaction, Courtney, to Matt Gaetz stepping up and saying what he said regarding this Air Force incident?
Oh, I think there was astonishment. I think there was people that were just, jaw dropping, listening to it. And I think that Burchett teed him up because in Burchett's introduction, he put major emphasis on Gaetz. If you pick that up in the intro, he said, he was essential and necessary. And, and he kind of led and opened to allow people to be aware. And so I think people were just astonished by it.
All right. Well, it's good to have that inside reaction. So now I'm going to turn the test to David Grush here because this is a big one. This was the star of the show. And everybody was waiting and wondering whether or not the 7 hours of interviews that he gave to Ross Coulthard was going to be just the information that he gave. But he seemed to come out like he had a few more bullets left in the gun and started firing. Courtney, take us through that.
Well, I thought a couple of the pickups that I had about Grush giving the information was about the abuse of the misappropriation of the funds. That was a really big pickup. And he gave us a couple of tips of where that was. He couldn't go into great detail, but he talked about it being an IRAD and the research and development and misappropriation of the funds there. And then that was a good pickup. And so he gave us that. He also gave us information about the, the way in which the contractors are being so powerful. And so he talked about insiders and outsiders of government that were controlling the issue. So he was directly asked about that, and he went on the record about that, which I thought was also a very good pickup for people in the audience and the American public.
Yeah, I agree.
To take on the military-industrial complex the way he has in exposing the fact that they are the ones who are holding the craft. They are the ones holding the bodies. They are the ones holding the secrets. That is brazen testimony, Melinda Leslie.
That's right. No, I thought it was brazen. I thought the comments he made about transparency, I expected that from Fravor and Graves. That's his whole thing with his new organization and everything. So I expected that from them. I was pleasantly surprised that Grush steered his conversation that way, and I was so impressed by not only his doing that, his skills at handling the entire thing. I think he seemed calm, cool, and collected for most of it, and his lack of knowledge about secrecy. Now, I'm not an expert on this, and Bob, you know these things. You can tell us, was he being truthful? Not truthful. When when I say truthful, I mean accurate, I should say, in what he was saying about security things and the clearances and calling those things out. Now, a few things I did know, some basic terminology I certainly knew from being so involved in this field and following this disclosure stuff so closely. But there were a few things in there, like the IRAD. I didn't know what that was. So I tried to look it up online. I got some conflicting information. Bob, why don't you clarify for us?
That's independent research and development. So when a corporation gets contracts, it is guaranteed a profit from the government. Profit is money they can put into a pot. And from that pot, they can do independent research and development, sometimes with, sometimes without government involvement. But if they're trying to do proprietary internal development, they don't have to tell the government. But let me tell you what he did. He blew the door open on the mechanism by which they're hiding it and funding it. So there will be a SAP, an unacknowledged waived SAP, where the government people sit in there, the lawyers sit in there, but they have no contact with the work that's being done over here by the company through an IRAD money. So they'll buy 4,000 $50,000 hammers, and that will be profit, and they'll do the UFO research with it. And over here is the controllers that are the government. They are in the WUSAP, and so they get the lawyer, the security officer, and the corporate person that sits on the side of the corporation, and that's how they do it. He told us the entire funding and control mechanism. He blew the door open on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, he did. And you know, Cortez validated what he was saying. And she also said that they'd seen abuse in other IRADs about notifications and how notifications come through. So there was an additional caveat that Cortez added on there that gave us insight into how that process happens, whether it's through email or whatever, and notifications are just ignored or not even notified. So there was an additional layer of information there for us to follow up on and to track.
The deal is there is no reporting mechanism required on IRAD. It's their money, but they have a wink, wink, nudge, nudge agreement under the table that they're going to work on this project. I mean, this is really, really seedy. It's really disgusting. And so he turned them in. He says, I don't think this is right. And to me, it looks like fraud, and I'm turning your butts in. So I mean, it was just kind of amazing.
And with the representatives like Ocasio saying, hey, we've seen this before. You know, it's like, I think they're like, I didn't think they even hesitated to believe in that fraud is there. And they're needing the names and the programs and everything. That's why the other guy, whose name is Oglio, is that it again?
Ogle.
Ogle.
Yeah, to ogle someone. Yeah, you got it.
It's not hard. I make it harder than it needs to be. But thank you. But that Ogle said, look, we got to have this information, because they knew they had to pursue that. And, you know, and again, the bipartisanship here on this, where I felt like, you know, was it Burchett even turned to Raskin and said, no, he turned to Garcia and said, I want to work it with you on that, you know? Yeah.
Yes. Or co-sponsor a bill. They also mentioned co-sponsoring a bill.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's
and even more important, the subcommittee chairman said, I'm giving you a handful of minutes, and you better get your act together and get me the bill. That's the way they craft a bill. The subcommittee that's in charge of that area and members of it, and their staffs, they write the bills. And then the subcommittee chairman takes it up to the committee chair. And committee chair says, okay, we'll let the entire committee vote on it, or we'll talk about it or whatever. And only then are the sponsors for the bill allowed to walk it down the hall to the speaker's office and drop it in a tray. And then it's a thing to be voted on by the House of Representatives. What they set up was to do the actual process. That's why it was important the subcommittee chair run it. It's because they have to go through the mechanisms if they're going to write law.
All right, I want to get Chris Rakowski in here for a second, because David Grush came out and literally was firing bullets. at everybody from the military to the companies who are allegedly holding this information. I mean, this is stuff we aren't used to, Chris. I mean, from a skeptical point of view, is it dangerous what he came out and said? What is your overall thoughts of his testimony today?
Well, I don't know if it's dangerous, but it certainly is a wake-up call for some of the politicians who have, their hands a little bit dirty. I mean, talking about misappropriation of funds, the IRAT. There's all sorts of ways in which doesn't look good, and you can bet that some of the people in that room were sort of nervously looking at each other, saying, "Well, what are we going to do?" Because it's very, very widespread in Washington. As you know, there's many books out and articles out about corruption and so forth. So, this is not surprising. I don't know if it was dangerous, but one can just imagine that. He said that he and his family have been threatened and so forth. I mean, that's certainly possible. It might have nothing to do with UFOs directly, but it might have to do with the fact that he's blowing the whistle literally as a whistleblower about some of this funding. But I mean, the problem is that it's getting muddy, because there's no question a lot of the stuff he says rings true, and how this is being done, and some of the people involved and so forth. But a lot of the stuff he's been saying is pretty wacky. I mean, talking about Mussolini's UFO from 1933, that's bullshit. And so, to sort of combine all this stuff with stuff that might be true, trying to discern right from wrong is a real problem. And that's where the challenge is. So when he says, that he's going to, privately tell in a skiff or wherever, where the saucers are, or whatever the entities are, or the crashed bits of whatever, that's great. But we need to know a little bit more information. And in the chat, Brian Bowden, it's hearsay until we actually get some facts. And a lot of us want to hear the facts because we've heard these stories before. But I mean, as Bob says, this is in a different kind of forum. So we do have some impetus now for the politicians to do something about it. And, to what Melinda was saying, it's never been done before. Well, it has been done before. This is my dog-eared copy of the first congressional hearing on UFOs, but it was a congressional hearing, not a subcommittee of the House Oversight Committee. Oddly enough, 55 years ago, almost to the day that this occurred.
Gerald Ford.
Pardon me?
Gerald Ford.
Well, and that was actually something that Grotham actually had wrong. He said Gerald Ford had seen a UFO. He didn't see a UFO, but he was a lobbyer, and he pushed for, before he was president, for a congressional hearing back in 1966. I think he made the first attempt, and so that was the way that the Condon report started. But unfortunately, following this 1968, Condon closed Blue Book eventually in 1969, and after that point, it's been a black hole. We really haven't known anything about what the U.S. government's been doing with regard to UFOs until fairly recently. So, I've said this before: be careful what you wish for. A full congressional investigation may actually be more damaging, and who knows? Maybe the reaction is not going to be for full disclosure, but to clamp down even more.
5 minutes ago,
I think there's a fear of that. I mean, I think that's absolutely correct. And I heard that today, that a lot of people were really wanting this groundswell to move forward and the wave to keep going. And so that actually doesn't happen. And I'm hoping that won't happen. I just wanted to bring one other thing up, and I'm kind of hoping that Bob will comment on it, because I wasn't quite sure in the context of what this meant. But David Grush was talking about Armed Services Title 10 equities, and I wasn't quite sure what that was in reference to. And so I was hoping that he could clarify what that was. And then he went into segue about the federal acquisition regulations, and that was the other thing that was the tip off for us to basically say that this is another area where misappropriations have happened. And I thought that was another insight that he was giving us. So I was just wondering if, Bob, you can clear that up, what that means, the Armed Services Title 10 equities.
Yes. So Title 10 is the body of federal law that governs military operations. Title 50 is the body of federal law that governs intelligence community operations. And each of those things can have layered on top of them executive orders, which all the executive, from defense to intelligence and everybody else that's in the bureaucracy, they work for the president, and the president can layer on caveats on all of their direction under federal law legally and with executive orders. For example, you can't spy on an American by any kind of real stuff inside the United States unless there's a warrant and through a court. Okay, so
tell Five Eyes that. Tell Five Eyes that.
That's Executive Order 12888. So you're getting right into the nuance. There is a difference between electronically collecting and putting stuff on a disk drive and calling it collection. It's not collection until a duly authorized intelligence officer reaches into the disk drive and pulls it out and pulls it on their screen. That's collection. Until then, it's just storage.
There was something Chris said earlier. Oh, thank you. Yeah, sorry. That Chris said that I wanted to comment.
Go ahead, Melinda.
I'm sorry, what?
Melinda, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, you had more? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
This is live reading. Melinda, go ahead, please.
Okay. I was confused. Maybe we have a delay or something, but I didn't know you had more. If you have more, then I'm going to wait.
Linda, we got 2.5 minutes, so we got to speed this up a little
sorry.
bit.
My apologies then. So, Chris, there was something you said there where you were saying, well, there's these muddy parts, and I'm like, well, Chris, you're a seasoned ufologist. You know, there can be hoax cases, there can be problem cases. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's the really good cases. Grush said he had 40 individuals come to him. I'd be okay if 10 of those people turned out that the information they gave him is questionable, or the backgrounds don't check out, or blah blah blah. That wouldn't dismiss the importance of the other 30. I'm just throwing out,
absolutely, and I agree
possible
about the
numbers. So to me, it's like Grush has got to come forward with that information. No.
Grush has already come forward with it under oath and under penalty of perjury.
Yeah, and
he has given them all the proof.
Yeah, and he's given
11 hours. 11 hours of testimony to the IC.
Right. And I misstated. I said I meant one thing and said another. What I meant was him now doing that in the skiff for these individuals. Okay, so he gave it to the IG. I don't know, Bob, you can help me explain to me. One thing I don't get here is why wouldn't the IG, once he gave it to them, have already given it to Congress?
That's the IG's job, is to give it to Congress. So if the IG didn't do it, the IG didn't follow the law. So I believe Congress. I believe but that committee is not the recipient of the IG's report. Grush said that in today's testimony. Okay. So just one more thing. Let me emphasize again. Dave Grush says, I have proof. So everybody agrees he's not lying. So he handed the proof over to them, and he told, what's her name? One of the best questioners of the day. I forget her name. I'm really sorry, but she was a terrific questioner. Metz or something like that. Anyway, she asked this question, and he said, I will give you all 40 names right after the hearing.
Yes.
Because their names are not classified.
Yes. And well, some of those people, though, I think it's a matter of because they're receiving threats, is he made very clear over and over again that he's wanting to do that in closed doors for their protection.
And he said they were both willing and hostile witnesses.
Yes.
All right. On that note, I'm going to get the panel to hold on, because we are through a power hour number 1 here on Spaced Out Radio. When we come back with Chris Rutkowski, Science Bob, Courtney Marchesny, and Melinda Leslie, I'm going to ask the question, even though there's no physical proof, is the door open to proof down the road? We'll be right back on Spaced Out Radio.
Thank
All
you,
right,
thank you, dear God, for Chuck Schumer.
Yeah.
That's the door open.
Yes,
I know.
His amendment
About
opens the
time.
door.
It's
His
about
amendment
time, damn
opens
it.
the door. If
we
it
should go back
passes,
with that.
it has to pass both houses, and the president has to sign it. After that, the door is open. Now, the bad part is they have 25 years to push it through the door.
Well, Bob, when I read it, the wording is 25 years from when it was originally stated. So
I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
No, when you actually read the actual verbiage, and a lot of people online brought that up, and it kind of got shot down. I know you've been saying that, but I mean,
that's good news.
I would need to look at it again, and I'd be curious, Bob, for you to look at it.
I will look at it more carefully because I misread it too. So the other thing is,
so it's not 25 years from the date the law passes. It's 25
but it's
years
even more
from the
important.
original event.
This is unlike any other declassification law I have ever seen, because the government and the corporations under eminent domain have to transfer back to the government everything they have, and immediately there's a panel appointed by the President of the United States and reviewed by Congress, which says this is all declassified. Every bit of it is no longer classified, and you can come and argue to us why we should reclassify it.
Bob, I would say hold that and let's come back with that, because that's
According to Zach W. in the chat room, 25 years is about declassifying stuff that is more than 25 years old.
That's great. That's terrific.
That's exactly my understanding. Thank you, Zach. Zach's been posting a lot of things throughout this that I've agreed with and wanted to comment on. So I think he has great insight. And thank you, Zach. I've agreed with everything you've been saying.
Yes.
Personally.
Yeah, I was misled by it being claimed it was done based on the JFK stuff, which was after 25 years, we'll release it. This is different.
Well, you're right. Their overall premises, I think, was based upon that. That's my understanding. But when you read the actual wording, it's what Zach is saying there.
But the proactive, it's unclassified till we tell you it isn't. That's amazing. I've never seen anything like that in my life.
Yeah.
Zach says eminent domain requires adequate compensation. How much will we have to pay the Aerospace Corps for that stuff? Otherwise, the Fourth Amendment issues.
There's that, but I guarantee you, once an accounting is done, and there will be an accounting done, of the several $1 trillion they've received will be determined to be adequate compensation.
Ooh.
And they will be dared to get in the way.
Yeah.
These are defense contractors. They can be turned off tomorrow. They will never get in the way of this because they'll lose all their contracts.
That's right. They'll lose the government doing business with them. Oh yeah, they'll roll over.
All Congress is putting the screws to them, I hope.
Well, yeah, I mean, they'll put up a fuss, and there's going to be a lot of legal wrangling, no doubt.
Yeah, the Holman rule got trotted out today.
That was amazing.
I know. I mean, that was a nice bookend. I was like, dang.
I'll go tell you, these Congress critters, they have excellent staffers who are well versed in the law.
Yeah.
By the way,
that is very obscure.
A lot of them get their jobs as they have legal backgrounds.
Here's a little history lesson for you guys. All right.
Okay.
Today, in 1948, Marvin the Martian made his debut.
I love it.
How
I'd
cool
hate
is
to
that?
have to disintegrate you. If you don't do what I say, I'm going to disintegrate you.
Where's mine? Where's
My
mine?
God.
Many years ago in high school, I had a boyfriend that did the perfect Marvin Martian. Cracked me up every time. My high school boyfriend nailed it. He was perfect, and he'd go on and on like a whole conversation like that. Oh, look at Chris has one.
Oh yeah,
Where?
I love Marvin Martian.
Wow, look at that.
I love Marvin Martian.
Chris,
Marvin
you just
representing.
went way up on the coolness factor right there, man.
Way high.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, way high on the cool factor.
I would love when he would try to blow Bugs Bunny away and Bugs would get away with it. It's so amazing.
And
those cartoons were so funny.
And Melinda was saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and all that sort of stuff. I also like saying, the phrase, where there's smoke, there's fire. For me, this time of year, where there's smoke, there's brisket.
There you go.
Oh.
That just made my mouth water.
And Grush's testimony.
You don't say that to a fat man, Chris. Come on.
And Chris, did you hear me? And Grush's testimony had lots of brisket.
Oh, lots of brisket.
Lots of
I
brisket.
just got my ribs rack out of storage.
Oh man, we got about 45 seconds here, guys. 45.
Let's have a quick look at Filthy's drawing.
Yeah, let's have a quick look at Dirty Filth's drawing here. What's the cartoon du jour? Let's see here. Things from the hearings. We got cubes.
Oh yeah, he's got the biological beings.
Football field-sized cubes, crash retrievals, and biological beings. I'm okay.
And not the Borg, we swear.
I'm okay.
Oh, Dirty Filth. This is another hole-in-one by you, my friend.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome.
Nailed
Filthy.
Slam dunks
so
all
awesome.
around tonight.
Not Borg, we swear.
Have a good night, weirdos.
All right.
Oh my God.
Dirty Filth, everybody. That's why we love them. All right. 5 seconds, everybody. I'm going to get you all to hold on, and here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We're talking UFOs all night long tonight after the big hearings in Washington, D.C. Welcome, everybody listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live at KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Gastrolith. Gastrolith is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Let's continue on with our great panel tonight. Canadian researcher and author Chris Rutkowski, Dr. Bob McGuire, researcher and experiencer Courtney Marchesny, who was at the UFO hearings in Washington, D.C., and researcher and Melinda Leslie is with us. And thank you so much for being on the panel, everyone. Let's talk about the door being open, Courtney, because for a lot of people, they are now saying that even though there was no physical proof, physical evidence, no videos, no photos, no nothing, no aliens walking in, this was a big day for that door opening because of the people who were called out, the businesses that were called out. You know, everybody from Sean Kirkpatrick, the head of Arrow, he took a few lumps today, same as the Pentagon, the alphabet agencies, the military-industrial complex took a big kicking from a lot of people. Just your thoughts on the door now opening.
I think it's definitely going to open. I mean, I think Rush has given us a trail and a breadcrumb trail to how to open it. And I think that there's so much support in supporting him. I really thought that the leaders were supporting him and giving him a way to provide that information, and also outside of the committee. And I think that's going to happen. I don't think the public will let this lie now that it's gone on the record. And I think he talked about the abuses, like we mentioned. He talked about the abuses with the FAR money. He's talked about the abuses with the IRAD money. He's giving a breadcrumb trail. So I think that it's going to crack open through those ways because he said he has the proof. I don't think that he would testify under oath saying he has the proof if he doesn't. And so because of that, and because there's solid proof that he had access to that maybe members of Arrow didn't have because of the Title 10 versus the Title 50 clearance, which Burchett basically said is inadequate, it's ineffective, it's not working, and this is how it's, we're at loggerheads. I think those little breadcrumb trails are the way in which the dam's going to break. It's about ready to, because they're going to follow up on it.
Melinda, your thinking on this?
No, I'm just agreeing with everything she just said. I was nodding and doing this because I was like, yeah, I think it is the breadcrumbs. I agree completely. And that they'll, I was thinking, again, that call at the end by Ogle, whose name I'm finally getting correct, I think, but to say, look, we got to have these SCIF meetings right away. And I think when they fall through on the stuff he's got, if it's all, so much of it is actionable. That was the one big, there's so many takeaways and so many highlights, but one big overall takeaway for me from this whole thing is how actionable so much of this is. So I guess we're just relying on Congress. I'm almost cringe to say do their job, because, they even started off the whole thing saying, faith in the government's an all-time low and everything. But you go, well, wait a second. If these guys act on some of these items, we're definitely going to get movement forward as long as they do. And I think they seem to piss off enough that they are going to act on it. But going back to the evidence thing, not only do I agree that there was evidence discussed, evidence talked about, the two pilots, obviously we believe their accounts. Grush, we're just believing him to say he's interviewed these people. But when he said, I've gathered all the data, and as Bob just clarified, they've gathered all this data, or he did, from these 40 witnesses and gave it to the IG. So the IG's got the evidence. And if there were photos, videos, which he said there was, and etc. And there's this debate online about whether Grush himself saw something. I think it was clear. I re-listened to that part of the testimony today like 3 times over, and he did say that he himself did see something, but he could only go into the details in closed door. About the nature of what he actually witnessed. Like they were saying, did you see a craft? He said yes. He said no to bodies, but yes to craft. And I re-listened to that a couple times to make sure I was clear on it. And he did. So for anyone to say, well, he didn't see anything, yeah, he did. And he got the evidence that he's seen the evidence from these witnesses. So if that's presented to this committee and these committee members, and they move forward in conjunction with the other folks in Congress that have already received that testimony and that evidence, I tell me if I'm wrong, you guys. My perception here, knowing all that now, is that this was for the public. I get that. This was the hearing for the public, and for this committee to be brought in on what was already known by others. So it's like, okay, we're going to bring this committee in so they can participate. We'll do it under the pretense that this is for the public, but now they'll ask for the information that we've already been shown. It's like a legal workaround. Am I wrong there, Bob? That's just my perception. Like, I'll
tell you what I saw. This is the first hearing in a House in, I think, my lifetime, where maybe during the Nixon Watergate trials, but since then, this is the first House hearing at any level that I have seen where not a single congressman came in unprepared and not one dumb question was asked. Yeah. Not one laugh was done. Yeah. Not one snicker. Yes. Let me tell you what this tells me. This is a plan that's been made and laid, and they're all playing a part. Today's part was preparing the ground for the rest of the folks to come in. Now, look, as a military intelligence person and an intelligence analyst, the worst kind of thing to go up against is a fully prepared defense. So you can be a great offense, but the other time has had 80 years to build a defense. Don't expect this to be easy. That's number one. So the other thing is, we've talked about Title 10 and Title 50. Today, there was admission that the DOE and the Q clearance system was involved. And then there's going to be pieces that are hid over here in the State Department, and pieces that are hid over here in the FBI, and pieces that are hid over here in the Department of Agriculture. So now we get to the bottom line. The Schumer Amendment, crafted to be applied to the NDAA, says all of that crap is crap. I don't want to hear about anybody's security clearance system. I don't care what it's classified as. It's now ours and it's unclassified. We don't want to hear about it. We don't want you to pop. You can't hold it back from us. We're taking eminent domain from corporations. We'll do whatever it takes to get it. And anybody in government, you have to give it to us now. And it is unclassified from this day forward, no matter what. And then we will set up a panel where you can come and argue to reclassify it. I'm telling you, this, I've never seen anything like this. And if that passes, there is no holding back. That's Roswell and everything.
All right, a couple questions for Chris Rutkowski here. Chris, Jeremy is asking in the chat room, why is the Mussolini craft BS?
Oh, well, people actually looked into that story years ago, and it's been tossed around UFO fans for quite some time, but somebody's looked into the story. Actually, a number of people checked into the document and found that it actually doesn't have any basis in fact. So, that's one of the reasons why we have to be very careful in dealing with, or rather than we have to be very careful in accepting absolutely everything. And this is the baby with the bathwater situation. There's a lot of bathwater, and we want the baby.
Yeah.
And Chris, I want to ask
There's so
you
much cognitive dissonance around this. I mean, that's a classic example. There's so much cognitive dissonance around this that I think it's hard for people to kind of grapple with. I mean, the New York Times just came out today and said Pentagon officials have said most reported incidents involved items like airborne trash. And we just had this hearing. We just heard, these pilots talking about being in there and seeing the Tic Tac and seeing these objects and something in the test range, rating white at the entrance of the test range. And you see this in the New York Times and you're just like, so I can understand
and they
why
almost running into it.
confused.
And they almost ran into it.
Yeah.
I keep seeing these comments online and like the New York Times article and some other things coming out. So much hit the fan today. It was hard to keep up with it, but like every other thing I did. But I tell you, you just went, are these people, were they not listening? Were they not actually listening to what was said? Because they're bringing up points that what was said completely puts to rest. And I'm like, it's like they're grabbing at these straws to come across, we're going to come across level-headed or negative or questioning or skeptical or whatever the flip their idea, what their role is. But it's like, I just kept feeling like so many of the comments I saw, so many of the articles, so much of the stuff was people who just didn't listen to what was said or chose clearly not to hear it. Like you said, cognitive dissonance. That's the perfect word.
Sure. And there were a couple of interesting things that should be noted, because there was a comment, Grush and a few others were saying about pilots, and commercial pilots need to have the ability to come forward with their UFO sightings. Well, here in Canada, we get these all the time. In fact, there is a mechanism in place for commercial pilots to report UFOs, and they're called UFOs in Canada, not UAP. Transport Canada, which is the equivalent of the FAA, actually has a classification of UFO in its incident reports, and they're made all the time. As a matter of fact, on May the 29th, over Mississippi, this comes from a Canadian government document. A private jet flying from Seattle to Naples, Florida, during a cruise at 41,000 feet. The flight crew saw an unidentified object. I'm quoting from the document. Unidentified object, estimated height 6 feet high, with white dome and red object underneath it, visible in the left-hand windshield, estimated at less than half a mile from the plane.
Wow.
Flight crew informed air traffic control at Houston with location and description. Air traffic control advised they were going to report the unidentified object. This comes as a daytime sighting. Let's see, 25. So 8 o'clock in the evening on May the 29th of this year. Report made by a Canadian pilot. This Canadian pilot, but happened over Mississippi. And we get these all the time.
I thought it was something to note. I thought it was something to note that Burchett put up to the FAA, our own FAA, right, in the U.S.
Yeah.
to have these sightings go to Congress, and it was blocked by the intelligence community. I mean, he led with that. That was his opening
Right.
statement out of the
Yeah.
box. He was
Yes.
blocked on it.
Right. But I will point out that at the SCU conference that's coming up this coming weekend, there's a presentation by a few people regarding drone sightings, or so-called drone sightings, in the FAA files. And there's a lot of objects that are classified as drones that do not sound at all like drones, that are flying at 40,000 feet, which,
Yes.
drones don't really do.
And loitering for hours.
Yeah, and
Well, is that
and-
military? Because I've heard military has, like really incredible drone tech.
Oh,
I mean, is that what you're
that's
thinking?
true.
One of the things they can't do is loiter for 8 hours.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's all sorts of things all reports that are in fact in the FAA files. So they're in there too. So, we get pilot reports, we get reports from, very, very qualified people. And those are the cases that we want to know more information about. The other thing, and I made some notes here, about a central point
Maybe our
for,
government could learn from what you're doing in Canada. And
I hope
model
so.
it
Well,
on
Chris,
the-
I just wanted to ask you this. I wanted to ask you this because of what you just said. It was a Canadian pilot. Was it a Canadian Air flight over US?
It was a
Mississippi, you
private
said.
flight. Yeah, it was a private flight.
Okay.
It's like a Learjet or something like that. That was
Okay.
flying, and it was flying from Seattle to Naples, Florida.
Okay.
But the plane was registered in
answered it.
Canada.
Plane
and the
was registered in
and the
Canada.
pilots were from Canada, so they have
Yeah.
reporting requirements.
Yeah.
That's what I was asking. Yeah, that's why I redirected. I get it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But we also have reports from American pilots who see things over Canada. In fact, there's a case, I don't have it in front of me, going back just a few years, where there's a flight from Anchorage to, I think, Minneapolis, something like that. It was over Saskatchewan, when the pilot reported some objects near the plane. So that was a case of an American pilot seeing something over Canada, and the
Mhm.
report made it into Canadian.
This hits home to me so much. I'll tell you why. On my tours that I do every night, I get hundreds. I mean, I just do what am I at? 1,695 tours. I'm this close to 1,700. I've had conservatively, I don't have an exact count, but I'll say easily well over 300 pilots share accounts with me coming on my tour. And private pilots, some military, but the majority of them have been commercial airline pilots. I just had a guy 2 weeks ago, and they go blah, blah, blah about the stuff they've seen. And so I know pilots are seeing a lot, and they need a place to report. I ask them now, I include it now when they bring these things up. Have you reported? No, and they're afraid, or they're worried what people think, or just can't be bothered, or they say they'll get hassled if they do, which was talked about in the hearing today, that they'll get hassled if they do. So they need to be encouraged, and those accounts need to be, gathered in some way. And whether it ends up being, a governmental body doing it in some way, I think people are going to be more apt to trust something Ryan Graves and his organization does, or if MUFON sets up a thing just for pilots or something like that, or has a way to collect their data to maximize that and encourage those individuals. And if the government said, okay, well, now we're using MUFON to do this. I know they've got people working with, consulting in the government. I was surprised that none of that came up today. I almost expected it to at some point, but they are. And then also, Ryan and his organization. So maybe there's, again, it's like someone needs to look at, it sounds like you guys are doing it successfully in Canada. So, to gather that data and start having that be something. But that came up today. We'll see what they say, and if they choose one of those
I
organizations.
think it's the way they're being treated too. I think there are a lot of whistleblowers that I've heard that are coming out, from Ross Coulthart and that group, saying that there are more, and they're waiting to see how David is going to be treated. And I'm sure that probably follows with the pilots as well, like with Ryan's group and others, that they want to see precedent being set, that the stigma actually is changing and the wheels are turning, and then maybe that will free people up a little bit more.
But
Notice
they need
that-
law. They need law. So the issue is the FAA does not have a regulation that tells corporations that operate these airplanes they cannot exact retribution against their pilots or crew. So it's the corporations that are telling their crews they cannot talk.
Yeah, they said that in the hearing today too, specifically. They did. They said that specifically.
They have to make law.
That's something Congress can, they can address that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there was another thing that Grush said that I think is very significant. He was asked specifically about, what do we need looking forward? What are you looking for? And he said, and the term he used was a sensor-centric.
Yes, he wants citizen scientists to have kits that they can deploy everywhere.
And
so he and I talked about this.
Just a little plug for myself being on the Galileo project. That I'm actually a member of Galileo and SCU, and a number of
at least one of those is reputable.
Yeah.
So just let me tell you why I said that. Avi Loeb's peers today, they pulled their names off the paper. They want nothing to do with him and his crap from the bottom of the ocean.
There's a lot of people who are very critical of Avi. There's absolutely no question. But the sensors are still sound. There's absolutely no question.
They're absolutely sound. Look, we need every sensor we can deploy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm actually on one of the subcommittees developing the location. We actually are trying to figure out where the best places for these things will be. So, the sensor. I agreed with Grush on this about sensor centric, and I think that's the direction that we need to go, because a lot of it, hearsay, anecdotes, all that sort of stuff. But we need hard data. And as a scientist, I have to say, I want the data. Give me the data. And by the way, thank you to Renee, who said that I look like data. Very much so. I mean,
I love data. And contextual. The other additional thing that they said they wanted, I think this was Graves, and I wrote this down. He said he wanted to understand the contextual understanding around more data and, the programs, the departments, regions. I mean, he gave a whole smattering of things that he would like to see happen in the future too. And I also thought that was a really good addition to what we'd like to see happen.
Yeah.
With 90 seconds to go here, there's still so much to go over, regarding the testimony and the reactions. One thing that I really noticed was the reactions, once again, from the people and the politicians. Courtney, I'd love a 90-second answer. What was the feeling inside the building where all of these stories and these emotions were being dropped? Because the testimony from Grush and Graves and Fravor seemed much more personalized than what we've seen robotic in the media before.
It was emotional. There were people when they heard some of his when he was talking about being hurt personally, and people were just, you could just feel the heaviness and the weight, and people were just crying out, like, sadness was escaping from them, because he was talking about his personal pain in this journey and how he's been hurt personally. And so people were very much following every word and feeling it and feeling his pain along with him. I can absolutely attest to that, sitting amongst everybody.
Yeah, that is something that really caught my attention. I couldn't imagine sitting in front of Congress and telling them point blank that I'm trying to tell you what's going on, and I'm having my life threatened, my family's life threatened, my career threatened, my financial status threatened, everything around. I mean, that's not a quote, end quote, an American thing to do. We expect that from the communists, the fascists, the North Koreans. We don't expect that
It was
from.
very much in the heart. Yeah, it was very much in the heart. People were in their heart and they were feeling it, and they were vocalizing it, and there were sighs and there was tears and there was upsetness. So people were actually able to process a little bit of that in the room.
Well,
today.
we have a fascist secret
Back from
government.
the break, guys. We're going to get into that emotion, and we are going to get into what were Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp doing front row at the hearings. Sorry about that, guys. I had to mute you because we had to get going here.
No, that's good. And the other thing is, where were the three witnesses that were supposed to be sitting behind Fravor?
Yeah.
They had chairs and they didn't show up.
Well, I thought those were the chairs.
They were tagged witnesses.
Well, I thought that's what they belonged to. Fravor, Graves, and
I think they were the only witnesses, so they didn't need it. They didn't need chairs. But you could be right. You could be right.
I suspect that. Anyways, I'm going to bow out because I have a video test with News Nation tomorrow morning early.
Okay.
No problem.
And but great chat, and this way you can.
Hey, go break a leg. News Nation is doing great. Go break a leg.
And you can say all the nasty things about me now. When I'm gone. So
okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Chris,
I think that aviation stuff would be a good thing for you to bring up on there. I didn't know if you had intended to, but.
I did the last time I was on, so we'll see if I have time this time. Okay, thanks, guys.
Chris, I will call you tomorrow about that thing I want to talk to you about.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Chris Rutkowski, everybody.
Good for him.
I bet there's not one in 100 Americans that know that for a long time he got all the airline complaints, all of them. He handled them all.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
They dumped every one of them on him.
I didn't know he was on the Galileo project.
No, I did not know that either.
Yeah.
But look, the guy has done unbelievable service collecting all that data.
Well, I'm glad he's with Galileo because Bob, if what you were saying is right, he sounds like he's a very grounded kind of bring that into that, and maybe save Bobby from himself,
No. I've talked to 7 different people who no longer work with Avi because he's a rabid control freak. Nobody can speak for him, and nobody has an opinion that he doesn't approve of. Okay, it's just a horrible leader.
Sounds like somebody else in the field that we know.
But look, he's used to bossing around graduate students, and he's treating all these big people like they were graduate students. So it's really bad. And he relinquished his scientific objectivity by authoring a paper with Kirkpatrick.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Yep.
That Kirkpatrick will be a funding source, and he's writing a paper about a fictitious made-up thought with Kirkpatrick. No, he is breaking every scientific ethic. So you don't go tell the world you have alien material until the peer-reviewed work has been done. His data is supposed to be sequestered until his peers have reviewed his paper and it goes into a journal. He is not following scientific ethic. He is ruining himself.
Sorry to hear that.
That is sad, but what do you do?
He's turned into a media hog.
Yeah.
And a glory hound.
Well, the thought of a potential Nobel Prize and $1 million paycheck will do that to some people.
That's a shame.
I have so many topics. I have so many topics over the next little while here, guys. So
go for it.
Are we going to talk about the experiencers, I hope, at some point, and where the experiencers come in all this?
Yes.
I really feel like Melinda and I have something to say about that.
This is for experiencers.
I came here today to bring up what the impact this has on experiencers.
For experiencers.
Right on, sister. Yes.
Let's get to the George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell thing right off the bat, because I think there's a level of importance there that we need to discuss. That's and a little bit more David Grush coming up. And then to kick off hour 3, we'll get into the experiencer side of things. Is that cool?
Yes.
Okay,
Cool.
yes.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, we have the whole show tonight, right?
Yes, we do. I'm not stopping tonight.
Okay, good.
Well, I'll stop after 3 hours, but
I'm sorry, little Timmy isn't with us.
Tim is traveling. He came from my place. He was here this past weekend.
He's out with Dave Altman.
Yeah, they left
Yeah,
on
he
Monday,
is.
and they're
They're
shooting.
coming here, so I'm actually going to see these folks.
Oh, Timmy Sheenor. I got a great video of him
Coming to Sedona.
having his first Timbits and first ice cap.
In fact, I'm going to text Altman and go, "Hey Tim, are you watching us?"
Well, are they going to Bradford Ranch?
Bradshaw. Yes.
Bradshaw Ranch. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
5 seconds, guys. 5 seconds. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on, please. Thank you. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on with our panel of researchers tonight. Science Bob is here. We have Melinda Leslie. We have Courtney Marchesani here with us as well, who attended the UFO hearings. And one of the things that caught my attention here, ladies and gentlemen, was the fact that intrepid investigative journalist George Knapp was front row and center along with his video documentarian sidekick, Jeremy Corbell. Now, for a long time, there's been many in the UFO community, especially, trying to figure out how Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp have worked their way into the upper echelon of this story, especially Corbell. It's easy to see Knapp, considering he's been following this story since the Bob Lazar story when he was a young budding journalist at KLAS Channel 8 in Las Vegas back in 1989. Well, we're almost 40 years past that story now. And yet here they are sitting front row and center. Bob, did that catch you a little off guard?
Well, you and I have discussed this on many occasions. Somebody involved with real sources is feeding them stuff. And now since they've had a little feeding, they're getting people coming in at random, like they've been covering this Marine story out of 29 Palms, and that blew up into kind of a big deal. And it was caused Twitter fights and all this other stuff, but it's actually an interesting case. And so they've got themselves buried in the system. And look, it is known in Washington that Knapp got Reed and Bigelow together, put them in a room, and talked them all into doing stuff. And Reed went back. He got Inouye and Stevens, and the three of them started OSAP and ATIP. And that was Knapp bringing Reed and Bigelow together. And Bigelow has been doing this stuff for the government now for ages.
The Inouye and Stevens goes back to the original formation of
OSAP.
No. Long before that. It goes back into the remote viewing program and the
NIDS
funding. No. Even before that, back to
But I'm telling you, the major deal with the DIA was NIDS.
Yeah, but long even before then, because back in the 70s and 80s, with the beginning of the remote viewing program, and the work at Stanford Research Institute, and the funding that was got for the starting of that was and the government, how they got the government contract was Inouye, Stevens, and Glenn at the time. Glenn, Inouye, and Stevens got them the funding back then, and then got them funding again later when it came up and it was almost going to end it. They got funding for them again later. So that's in the book Remote Viewers by Jim Schnabel, that information. So there's a long history going back with those guys. But going back to Knapp came across, I think it's well understood how he got involved in the Bob Lazar story. I think because of his involvement in that, maybe he was courted by individuals, but Knapp, being no dummy, realized he was going to have the inside track on some stuff and played along. That's what I'm thinking. That led to his involvement in everything all along. And having to sit on stuff, to when he couldn't go public with it yet, he obviously sat on information.
But look, the Skinwalker book that he wrote with Colin Kelleher and Lukatsky, not many people get to write a book with the major scientists for the government that funded all that work.
Yeah. Well, that's because he was,
and I thought that it was interesting.
He was already involved, and so he'd already gotten their respect. So he was sitting on stuff that he knew that they couldn't go forth with until that book came out.
It was interesting too. I thought there was maybe going to be like a changing of the guard when the New York Times article came out, and Leslie Kean and Helene Cooper and Ralph Blumenthal wrote that, and he kind of had to step aside because he had it and he wanted it and he wanted to be the one to publish it, and they said, no, we're not going to go with you. And so at that point in time, I thought maybe he was going to step to the side a little bit, because they wanted it to be taken not more as a fringe topic. They wanted this to become the big black money or black aura story, and it was. But now having him there in the front of the hearing again, it was interesting because it was like everybody was there. Danny Sheen was there, Steve Bassett was there. I mean, a lot of people that are there, like you guys, who have been in this field for 30 years plus, but they were right up front. So I thought that was the really important piece, that they came through the side door. They were courted by the press. I was standing right there. The press was surrounding them as they came in and made their entrance, and then they were courted all the way into the front row.
Well, Bassett's
so
a registered
I feel like
lobbyist.
The changing of the guard is switching back now or something. I don't know.
Well, no,
Bassett's a registered lobbyist.
Yes, that too. But I can tell you what all these folks did that I don't think it's a mystery. They warmed up to Burchett. And they became tight with Burchett. Burchett was running this. Yeah. He got them in there. I don't think it's any mystery. And
he thanked them. He actually thanked them. It's in the transcript that he thanked.
Well, and then they submitted something, which was the first thing that he read. So obviously they had that close relationship with Burchett. Burchett was on their program, their podcast, and so there was that tight relationship, and they had helped him, he helped them, and so I none of it surprises me. I think I understand.
Yep.
I'm not surprised. How about you, Bob? Are you?
No, I'm not surprised. It's been clear for a long time that Knapp had the inside scoop, and he's been involved in everything forever.
And he's never ever complained. He's been asked to hold off on a story so that way it could go to a bigger media outlet. Even stories that he's had for 8-9 months, he has sat on, like he did with the TTSA stories and the videos. He knew about that 8-9 months prior to that actually happening. And he allowed it to go to Leslie Kean, Helene Cooper, and Ralph Blumenthal because of the size of the New York Times. And I got that straight from Knapp.
Yeah.
That's from the man himself. So there is a media game being played here. My concern as a media member and as a journalist is we see these outlets going to just certain people.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
There's very few people who are actually breaking the stories. Ross Coulthard is one. My question about that, nothing against Ross Coulthard and his amazing work, but my question as a journalist of that is, why are American politicians talking secret stuff with an Australian journalist? That doesn't make sense.
I've wondered the same thing.
Okay.
I've wondered the same thing. Like, you've got an Australian journalist on News Nation.
So when he interviewed me off the record last summer, before I left Alabama and came up here. So and he told me a fair amount of stuff, and I'm just going to tell you, he busted his butt for 3 years nonstop until he finally got a breakthrough. And he did he go a little further. And finally, he had people that were in the legacy UFO programs, especially one or two on their deathbeds, that told him everything.
I think he just earned respect. He did a bunch of shows. He did his book. He did his movie. And I think he did a good job at those and earned respect. And people trusted him. Maybe, I even questioned that a few insiders come to him because he wasn't U.S.
Yes.
They felt he just moved. That added an extra layer of safety, or at least gave them the appearance of feeling safe with them. But appearance would be everything for someone to trust somebody with their story. I don't have any problem with that. I think he earned it.
Yeah, the big mainstream media, they every one of the big mainstream media has a trough at which those pigs feed. So, I mean, every one of them has sources. They build those sources over years, and it's a corporate thing. They go to that source. That source gives them their stories, and then they have 4 or 5 of those. But they always go, and they never cross them. They never do anything that pisses them off, and they've lost objectivity.
But the point that I'm getting at is with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp being in the front and center of this, because we know they're tight to David Fravor. Those are a trio. Okay, we know that they are friends with Ryan Graves due to the fighter pilot connection between Fravor and Graves, both Navy pilots, both FA-18 pilots, and they're going to team up. We know that Knapp had met with Grush prior to this and everything. Yeah. So I mean, my big thing is this, do you think this hurts the journalistic integrity of somebody like George Knapp, who is been covering this story for 35 years, 34 years, has every lead going? And I'm saying this just as a question. I don't personally believe this. I think George Knapp has done amazing due diligence on this story. But do you think it hurts from an outsider's perspective? Do you think it hurts his credibility sitting front row and center during a UFO hearing like this, where he's not covering it as a journalist?
I don't smell 1 ounce of impropriety here.
Yeah,
I just don't. I just don't smell it. But he's got inside sources, and he's just using them.
Yeah, and
he's got the inside track, and he's using his sources.
Exactly. He has a friendship now with all 3 witnesses. The witnesses got to probably name who sat behind them.
And I wish Melinda and I had known, because I mean, we saw Corbell and Knapp with Grush in Huntsville.
Yeah.
I think people, when they see him up there, he deserves it. Yeah, well, I think people look at him up there and they might think, okay, he's getting advantages, or he's getting contacts, he's getting sources. But I also think people that have been in the field for the long time look at him and say he deserves to be in the front row.
He got permission from the witnesses to be in the supporting seats for the witnesses. Because he has those relationships with them. Both of them, built those relationships. I see more power to him.
Yeah.
And speaking of media, I just want to ask this, and this might be a little bit giving a little bit away, but I just wanted to say to Dave and Bob, when we were in the group with Ross, right, for that long period of time, don't you think that his opinion about experiencers changed over time, and he evolved as he got more and more involved with cases and talking to people? I mean, I witnessed that myself just being in our research group.
Yes.
And you know what? I would like to comment on that, because Ross started off not knowing a thing about this topic. This has been an educational roller coaster for Ross Coulthard. It really has. And what he has learned through all of this is that everybody is right. The nuts and bolts scientists are right. The pilots are right by what they've witnessed. The testimonies from David Grush, Lou Elizondo is correct. And more importantly, the experiencers are extremely right.
Yeah.
And
I was happy to see that, evolution in his research and in his writing
Yeah,
and
I've
talking
seen
to
it
people.
too.
I did want to say that Commander Fravor did say that Lou Elizondo was the director of ATIP. Did you pick that up?
Oh yeah.
I did.
Well, Harry
Yeah.
Reid said that before he died.
But in
It
context
was
to
interesting
today,
to hear it again. Yeah.
in context to today, I felt like Fravor, all these guys were wording everything they said so carefully,
Yeah.
and that they had rehearsed their answers ahead of time. I mean, of course they should. Of course they should, if
But
I
they
could
don't
ask
want to go to jail. They don't want to go to jail.
No.
but also rehearsing, like, I'm going to get in these extra points when the opportunity arises to say what I want to say. Like I do that too. You go into an interview. We all do. I didn't tonight necessarily. Well, I kind of did. I guess I did. I did have my bullet points. But you go into interview with your bullet points, saying, what do I want to cover? What do I want to say? What will I feel happy if I get across? And you leave a lot of flexibility, but I'm sure they went into those interviews with their bullet points of I'm going to work in this, this, and this. So I agree. I think that was deliberate that he said that he gave that nod to Lou. I felt like that was very deliberate.
Well, Lou and Grush know each other because Grush was on the UAPTF and he was working some of this stuff before with ATIP and OSAP. I mean, he knew Lou, and Lou was one of the first loud voice saying that Grush was real.
Wasn't it Fravor though that made the comment about Lou?
Yes, but I'm talking about earlier.
Oh yeah,
earlier.
Yeah, earlier. Today that Fravor made a point to say that and give.
Yeah. Today he did, but before Lou did.
I want to ask you.
Lou praised Grush.
Let's mention a little nod really quick, because he texted me right before this and he said, "Oh, do they want me on?" But we'd already started, and that was the nod in the very beginning. Not only reading into the record, the document or whatever. We can go back to that to Corbell and Knapp submitted. But the nod to the movie, Accidental Truth, which I have
Accidental Truth was named. I mean, it's in the transcript. I double checked it before I came on tonight. It says Accidental Truth in the transcript. It's in there.
Yeah. And Ron James texted me right before going on the show. He's the producer director of it, and was like, "Did you hear that they mentioned my movie?" And I'm like, "Of course I did."
Yes.
And I was like, "Oh my God, that was great." Anyway, it's just a little thing, but it was still great. And I was happy for Ron that they said it.
Melinda, one thing I want to get to here regarding David Fravor and Ryan Graves. I was very pessimistic of their testimony coming in, thinking that we have heard their stories for 6 years. We have heard them on every newscast, every quote on the internet from them. Everything has been the same. And I'm just wondering, like we all talk about and we're all bragging about the great job David Grush did again in part 2 of his hearings. But was there anything special that Fravor or Graves said that would really enhance their credibility and their stature of something they didn't mention the previous 6 years? Bob, I see you nodding your head. Fill me in.
Okay, so I already mentioned that Graves was the person who got the testimony from the Boeing contractors out at Vandenberg Air Force Base of the football-size field UFO. That was Graves that brought that to the table today. And Fravor just sat there and said, we saw it. Nobody would listen to us. We tried to get his stuff done. Nobody would talk to us. And I didn't even know it was coming out until I saw somebody talking about it. And then he contacted Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon and started working with them. They became a trio. I mean, so Fravor was important to talk about the cover-up. Fravor or the ignoring of the UFOs and UAPs, and Graves was important because he's got this big-time organization that's organizing safety complaints across both military and commercial aviation, and he had to tell that story because they're going to write legislation. They're going to write legislation that gets the FAA stuff reported.
I think Fravor was also significant because the significance of that case, now it may have been overstated to say, oh, we're the most important, best documented case in history. That a little, okay, overstated. There's a lot of history, that's being excluded there. But, oh, hang on, I can't, Bob, there's something with your timing. Is it just me or is Bob's?
Don't worry, Melinda, we're on the radio.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I apologize. There was something with Bob, and I thought he was talking and we weren't hearing it or something. Technical difficulties, no big deal. Okay, it happens, Okay, so going back to, I thought Fravor was significant because, well, that may have been overstating. At the same time, when I thought about it, if you go into the amount of other data, I mean, Kevin Day's a friend of mine, the amount of other data and the other ships and the radars and the FLIR and the different things that was picking up, you go, wait a second, that's not just about the sightings. Yeah, did 6 people see the objects up in the planes? Because he brought that up and then said it was 6 people. But you also had the people on the boats who saw it.
Melinda,
and his radio was jammed, Dave. So I'm not sure, that might have been new information. I was listening very closely to Fravor's testimony, and he talked about how everything was jammed, and I don't know we knew that before either. In his testimony,
we knew about the radar. We knew about the radar.
We did, okay, because he said everything was jammed, and he could only take pictures in the testimony today with some archaic manual thing. So anyway, I didn't know that we knew that.
Yes.
Okay. One of the things that I was very, very critical of was, the same thing, hearing the same thing, bringing in that same topic. Melinda Leslie's having an internet connection problem. She'll be right back here momentarily. But Courtney, Bob, I needed new information, and I rolled my eyes when these two were brought up on the panel. Grush, I'm excited about, but here I'm thinking 6 years we've been hearing about 2004. 2004, for all of us older generation UFO people, is an arch nemesis to the history of this since Roswell, and all the stories, the lies, the contempt, the threats that have been made over that time prior to 2004. So the fact that we were able to, get Ryan Graves to talk about this football-sized cube, I mean, it matches up with the size that many other people have seen and heard and everything. Bob, you want me to come to you here?
No, I saw one that big over the USS Blue Ridge in 2008.
Talk about that.
Well, I had a mission where I was on the USS Blue Ridge, which is the flagship for the Southern Fleet, for several months, and we went through a typhoon going through the South China Sea, and I've noticed that the rain was being blocked off, even though it was 90-knot winds, and we were in the middle of a typhoon. And there was no rain hitting the ship. So I walked up, I was in the bridge. I walked up, looked up out of the window, and I could see a little glow with no rain coming down. And all of a sudden, the glow got really, really bright and went pew, straight up and out of sight. And it started raining again. I knew it was a UFO the minute I saw it.
Bob, what shape was that?
I couldn't tell because it was a typhoon. The weather was miserable. I could barely see the glow.
Because I once saw right outside of Area 51. So even though I'm not a military or an intelligence person, I'm with 4 people in a car, 3 plus me, total 4 of us in a car, leaving the Area 51 in Rachel, Nevada. We'd turned off 375 onto Highway 93, and we were right between Ash Springs and Alamo, right between those, and we had a major sighting, something the size of easily a football field. It was a big silver pancake in the sky. And on my various trips out there, I had met, and he started calling me on the phone back then, a guy who worked for Wackenhut Security, was one of the security perimeter guys out there, and he would occasionally call me. And a couple days after I get home, I get this phone call out of the blue from this guy, back when it was Billy Goodman's The Happening radio program, and that going on prior to Art Bell. And this guy would call in. But anyways, he was calling me on the phone, and he ended up saying, "Did you see the sword?" And I said, "How did you know?" Because we kept describing in the car, it looked like a big sword in the sky.
Linda, I got to cut you off there. We're about to go to break. I apologize, my dear. Hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio gets to the experiencers next.
We have too much to cover. We need 9 hours.
Yeah, it's okay, Dave. I got it in.
I'm sorry, love.
No, I got it in. I got it in. If you heard me say the sword, I got it in.
Yeah,
yes.
we did.
I Draculotocon.
Well, sorry, I got bonked out. I guess that was internet problems on my end. Sorry.
Yeah, it went really, really slow, and you crashed.
Yeah.
Terry Hall and your mustache. Whereabouts are you? Have you made it to Utah yet?
I'm going to open up a window, man. I'm cooking in here.
I've got windows.
I think the air at the Center for New Age cut off. Because it's still 90 out, and I think the air shuts off at night. So I'm like, dying. It's probably 105 in here. Ugh.
Oh, that's all right. That's
See if I
all
can
right.
do this without unplugging, without untethering. Come on. There we go. Air. Ooh, that's gonna feel good.
Well,
I can remember to close it when I go. Real catch holy. You know what?
I know that feeling. I know that feeling all too
Try
well.
not to piss off the center. I have a great 12-year relationship with them, and I do try to keep it that way.
I know you do. I know you do.
And they've learned I'm a good kid. They've learned I'm good, but usually.
You're good.
Yeah, they know you're leaving the window open would not go over well.
Why is it saying my camera was unplugged? Hold on, give me 2 seconds here. I got to reboot this thing.
Yeah, we've missed. Courtney and I can see each other. Hi, Courtney.
Live long.
Hi, I can't wait to see your. I can't wait to see your stuff that you have prepared for UAP Med Coalition.
Well, are you okay? I didn't know you were part of that. Great, wonderful.
Yes. We've been on a couple meetings together, but you probably don't remember me because there was too much going on.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
I think you're right.
I think that's just the greatest thing. And Lala and I both did one of their interviews. So they got a bunch of interviews on there. Some of those are really interesting. And
Well,
let me tell you the one I was most excited to
Question
see.
about my involvement,
James Ian Doley has just never come out and told his story until that video.
Yeah.
It was the first time I ever knew
amazing.
his story.
He and I actually have a lot in common with our stories. James and I do. We've talked about it.
A couple times in the hearing today, I thought of UAP Med because a couple things came up regarding people being affected and harmed and all those things. I really thought I was going to say thought of you guys, but I thought of us because I'm involved now too. I kept thinking of UAP Med going, we need a voice in this because these are the very things we're talking about,
Yes, exactly. And I know that you have your civil rights stuff, and I'm really interested in learning more about it. So,
can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. I'd love.
This disclosure goes forward. I want to protect
You're fine, Dave. I'd love to see Chris Bledsoe go to UAP Med and get some interaction with them.
Yeah, I think he should.
Yeah,
because he's had trouble.
He said online today, Bob, he was going to get interviewed tomorrow. What's that on? He's getting interviewed on.
He was on the 8 o'clock Fox News guy.
Oh, Fox
All
right.
Tonight. Yeah, tonight. He was on tonight, 8 o'clock with Jesse, whatever his name is. Jesse Waters.
Did you see it, Bob?
I did not, but it'll be a video later.
Okay.
I didn't have time.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
I guess I thought it was tomorrow. I didn't realize it was today.
We got 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Yeah, Chris and I've been talking a lot lately. It's good. I'm so happy for Chris. So happy.
He's a good guy. I hope he came off very down to earth in that interview. I hope so.
He always comes off down to earth.
I don't think he could come off any other way, man. He's salted to the earth.
Like Burchett, he's going to be folksy,
Yeah.
Like Burchett, he might be his folksy self.
He has the most winning way.
Yes, yeah.
And he's is a kind and gentle person.
Yes, he is. No, he's a good guy. I've gotten along with him quite well.
All right, we got about 30 seconds. I want to say a big thank you tonight to a ton of our super chatters, especially Louie and Jeremy, Robert, Stephen, Pam H, Boo, Kira, Ken, Debster, Gizmo, Mennonite Abe, Lori, W. Decker, Charles, Science Bob, Brian Bowden, Surf Jer, CS, and Big J, and la 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 la. And I know Bob loves it when I do that.
Yes.
La 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 la. Hi, Amy Vegas. Oh, how are you, gorgeous?
You need to do that when she comes on your show and embarrass her. Embarrass her.
I'm going to be like, and our guest tonight is la 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 la. Right.
Her dad started calling her that right after she was born. Her name is Laura, but he called her Lala since she was born.
Yeah. So,
all right, we got 25 seconds. Thank you to everybody who has hit subscribe and given us a thumbs up, thumbs down. If you haven't already, we'd greatly appreciate it. Hi, Bombshell Bomber. Good to see you. We're here 7 days a week for your listening entertainment. We'd love to earn that subscribe from you. And don't forget to follow us on social media. Here we go, everybody.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Kicking off hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio tonight, we are going the distance talking about the UFO hearings here on the mighty SOR. So important that we get these topics out to you, the public, to educate you and let you know that aliens are here. We welcome everybody listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Gastrolith. Gastrolith is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on. We're going till the top of the hour here talking UFOs tonight. Dr. Bob McGuire, known as Science Bob, Melinda Leslie, researcher and experiencer. Courtney Marchesny is here as well. And Courtney, you were at the conference today, and you... Marchesani, sorry, my dear. You were at the conference today talking with people, talking with other fellow experiencers and researchers. It was a big UFO party at the Capitol today. And for people who have just tuned in, give us a quick synopsis of what that was like, being surrounded by people who just want answers, experiencers who have had the ultimate experience of not just seeing a UFO, but maybe being taken or other information that has kind of come through. What was that like, being surrounded in that area?
Well, there were people that were there since 9 o'clock last night, waiting to be the first person in the door, and then rolling shifts of 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And I got there probably around 7 with best of intentions to get there at 6. But by that time, there was already 25 people rolling deep out of the front doorway. So people were really anxious to get in to the hearing. But the way it rolled is there was such a long line, and there were people trying to butt in the line to get in. I mean, it was chaos. But in that chaos and that disorder, there were so many connections being made. There were friendly faces there, people in the community that you know, and there were so many people that were curious. So a lot of the press were asking if we were experiencers, if we'd seen an anomalous object. And I wasn't interviewed on the press, but somebody that I was with was there, and he hadn't had that experience. But when you say that, it opens the door for people to have conversations with you and ask about your experience. So I had a lot of people asking me about my own personal experience, which was fine. I'm happy to share. And I feel like that spirit of friendliness and camaraderie, and everybody just started losing all of our defenses because we're standing there for like 5 hours, you know? So everybody just starts to be more communal and inspirited together. And I really feel like everybody just started to hang out and feel as one, almost like one mass. It was cool.
Excuse me, Courtney. How did they decide who got in? Who got
well,
in?
There was designated press. There was designated press, and then there were levels of the press. There was like high-level press, mid-level press, and then people that were obviously like not press, but they were still, you know, trying to get in as press. And so the high-level press got in, as well as the committee members. They were also in line. I didn't know committee members had to wait, but they came into line. There were the people that were there since 5 a.m. They were in line, and then they kind of cut it off around 50. And so all the rest of the like 250, 300 people didn't get into the hearing. There was an overflow room.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. Was there an overflow
room? There was
an
overflow room, but I don't know. I think there was only one overflow room, and all those other people just had to wait in the hallway. So that was really frustrating for a lot of people, especially people who got there early. But it was still a wonderful place to be, and everybody was together, and there was a big spirit of camaraderie there. And so that was wonderful to be a part of that.
Could you guys hear them like cheering in the hallway, like the people out in the hallway while you guys are in there?
There was cheering when we were in the hallway, when Burchett came up. Yeah, when Burchett came up, there were people applauding. When Danny Sheehan came down the hallway, people were applauding. I mean, everybody was really involved and engaged and paying attention to who was who and paying attention to who was coming in. Everybody was really hyper vigilant about the whole thing, waiting, hoping with expectation to get in the room.
I'm sorry. I hope Danny got in the room. Obviously, we know that Bassett
did. He did. Yeah, no, I saw him get in, so he got in.
Well, he was connected and representing some of the people involved. So yeah.
He's definitely connected.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the experiencers here. Courtney, you were in there as the conversation started to turn that people are having experiences. What was the reaction when this conversation started coming to fruition?
Well, I think people were relieved that David Grush said that there were non-human biologicals. I mean, he said that. He said it out. He said it on News Nation. He said it again in the hearing that there are non-human biologicals. And I think it was Cortez who said, why are you calling them, not saying they're extraterrestrial? Why are you saying keeping this open? And he said, because I want to keep my mind open. And I thought that was very good. And I think a lot of people were very excited that he's leaving it open. They're talking about material reality being, some kind of major shift and paradigm shift because this technology is allowed. And so I think for experiencers, that was also very good because we've experienced those kind of warps and shifts and after effects being experiencers. So people were very relieved that he went on the record with those issues.
And refresh my memory. He said something about him and his wife had an experience. That was new. That Grush and his wife.
But that wasn't non-human intelligence. And if you go and read the transcript and you look at the nuance between how he's going on the record, he was actually talking about the experience of him and his wife and at the hands of like human
being persecuted. He and his wife,
and the harm that's being done to them.
They had a very, 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 very troubling experience.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and so I think that was more human related, less NHI related.
Gotcha.
But I think there were people that were reading into that and thinking it was a hitchhiker effect that they experienced, and it was more like a Skinwalker Ranch related thing. But I don't think that's the case. You'll check the transcript yourself, but I'm pretty sure it was human related.
No, the context they were talking about him being persecuted, and right after that he talked about him and his wife being abused physically.
Yes,
physically abused.
Correct.
Yeah, maybe they're run off the road or something.
I mean, look, Melinda and you and many others who've had my labs know that when you're thrown in that black helicopter, you're not treated kindly.
Yeah, or people, like I have so many cases where the people were roughed up or run off the road, like the car suddenly starts swerving into you, and various things that et cetera, et cetera. So I know all about that. Yeah, in the Millab cases. So that came to mind as soon as you guys said that. But
there were a lot of people that were curious about experiencers and what they have experienced. And so the people that were open enough to tell their stories talked about their own experiences. And there were experiencers there who were representing the community. People like Randall Nickerson were there, and Jay Christopher were there. And so there were these, high level, like pinnacle people who are leadership in this community. And so that was also really great.
They both got in the room.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Randall was there.
Jay sat with Leslie. Jay sat with Leslie.
Yes. Okay. Yes, he did.
Yeah. Dan, I hope Dan got in the room. Did Dan get in?
He did. Yeah. He absolutely did get in. Yeah. I watched him walk in. Yeah. And I saw him after the hearing. He was there.
Rooting for, there's probably others too, but definitely those are people I'd be rooting for to have them in there for sure.
Oh yeah, they deserve to be in the room. I mean, let them cut the line. Who cares? They deserve to be in the room.
Let me tell you
part of it is, I think if you were an FOB friend of Burchett, that was going to help you.
Yeah.
But the idea is, the one thing that I love about this, guys, is the conversation is opening. I remember having conversations with people in the know who are very connected to this story, saying, Dave, we're not getting into aliens. We're not getting into UFOs. We're not getting into people being taken. We're not getting into contact. The public isn't ready for that. But more importantly, the politicians are not ready for that. And yet in a mere 6 years, we've gone from that conversation to where we are today, where it's okay to talk that people are having anomalous experiences. People are being taken. People are being hurt. People are being healed. I mean, this is to see that door for the experiencers open. I think that's wonderful news. And
that's what we're there for. I mean, that's what I'm there for, right? To do the advocacy to get that door open so that more people can be validated in their experiences.
And I want to revisit that thing I said at the very beginning of when you introduced me here tonight, Dave, and let me say my bit in the beginning, was the impact on me as an experiencer, as an abductee. This hearing, it's like it hit home in a deep, kind of visceral, emotional way to go, oh my God, I'm being supported, and this is going to change people's perception. I don't even know, and just the whole confirmation of the whole thing even happening. I thought, another person who posted something online today about his emotional impact, and I really related, because as I cried during it, I thought, am I the only idiot out here crying? And then I realized, no, anyone with a deep personal experience is going to. But I was so relieved, because right away I look online, and who immediately posted that he was moved to tears was James Fox. And James Fox said the emotional impact that multiple times, because of his direct, close involvement with the subject, it's like, oh my God, we're here, and the confirmation. And he posted today that to the degree that he has been ridiculed, and the abuse and the ridicule he's gotten, and his family not understanding, and finally to say, oh my God, I'm going to be more accepted. And that hit me today. I think that was part of the emotional stuff later, not so much while I was watching it. I was caught up in the emotion of the moment, but later as thinking about it is going, oh my God, this is going to change how we're accepted.
The people used
and
to
it's
make fun
triggering
of
too. I think it's important to let people know that it's triggering too, especially for experiencers, right?
Yes.
Who have been dealing with following everything, watching everything, every news bite, every soundbite, reading every book, trying to understand it. So there is some level of like psychological triggering and tension that's happening as well, where you feel like you can release a little bit and you're processing at the same time. So I've had several people who have been kind of breaking down and crying. And I've just been reminding them, well, we're being triggered in a sense by all of this, and everything's going to come up. So you've got to give yourself some grace too.
Yeah, Courtney, that very thing that you're saying right now, I can say that was part of it for me today too. It was the release, it was trigger, it was pent up emotion, it was, it was all those things. Just because and again, it's like the confirmation that. Again, I mean, I've had witnesses and physical evidence and so much stuff, and over the years, thank God, and support groups and everything, where I keep getting it confirmed about my experience. But it was like a deeper level of confirmation, because it got into that whole acceptance by society thing, and yeah, that's it, and it was triggering in me, and I think. Even though James Fox is coming out from making his movies, but his close interaction with people that have had experiences, that he's been involved to that degree. He's had to have that empathy for him,
And secondary trauma is a real thing. Secondary trauma is a real thing for rescuers, for people who take stories and who do testimony, and they're very close to it and it's very raw. They receive that. And so they're also experiencing it as well as a secondary.
Yes, that's
right.
It
gets overlooked. It gets overlooked, but it's definitely a real thing.
Yeah, the study of war correspondence tells you that it's very, very rough just standing on the sidelines.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
That's very true. That is very, very true.
They're witnesses. They're witnesses. They're witnessing it.
Well, that's why there's that whole support system for family members of people who've been through trauma, family members of alcoholic and drug abuse, you have Narconon and all those things, so you have, because you are caught up in it, and when you work closely with anyone who's been in it, if you're a caring empathic person, you're going to get involved, and I would certainly put James Fox in that category, no doubt. And also, of course, the obvious confirmation for him for crash retrievals and the Virginia case, and the impact that crash retrievals are getting their day and are probably going to be brought in further, and so the realization that this could cause more of his witnesses to come forward and everything. I'm sure there had to be a direct case correlation for him too, beyond. But I was touched by him saying that emotionally, because I was like, God, I feel so weird for crying. And then and then I read what he did, and I'm like, oh, well, James Fox can cry. I can too,
Yeah, let it go. Let it go.
Yeah. But it was very emotional. I would think anyone who's been in the field for more than 5 seconds had to get caught up in the emotional impact of the significance of today. I'm like, especially if you've been in it for years, like me or James Fox or you or any of us here, It's like,
I'm just excited with the conversation being opened, okay? Because very few radio shows, podcasts, YouTube channels, you name it, on the subject of UFOs have really focused on the experiencers. Everybody wants to be the nuts and bolts. Everybody wants to play scientist. Everybody wants to play the game that gets them in best with the SCU or Galileo or whomever. Yet we have really, on this show, focused on the experience and how people feel about these subjects. And I'm going to pat ourselves on the back for that and show a little ego with that here. And I hope you all don't mind for that.
No, you've earned it.
You're on the right side of it, Dave. You're on the right side of history with this, and that's good. That's something you can feel good and feel proud about.
What steps now need to be taken to open up the door for the experiencers? Because the last hearing, one of the camera people panned out to a couple of real tinfoil hatters who I think really make people like us look bad. Okay, it was that old stigma of tinfoil, and I use tinfoil as an insult here. Okay, that we don't need on camera. It's like the old story, news story that if you're going to a protest, you find the dirtiest, the slimiest, the one who has the 1985 hairdo, and that's the one you talk about to try and bring their point together. And that's what I felt the media did after the last hearing. They went back to that old stigma of what an experiencer should look like, rather than their normal everyday people, from doctors and scientists to laborers and lawyers. And how do we keep, with 4.5 minutes to go here, how do we, Melinda, keep that door open? What is the next step to bring more credibility to the experiencer in this conversation?
Showing I don't know, maybe it's too simple of a response, but I think it's ultimately, maybe the answer is that increasing level of acceptance. I think a natural process of what happened today is it's going to cause more people to be willing to say, yeah, I've had experiences, I've had sightings, I've had contact, I've had interaction with beings. It opened that up today. I agree with you, Dave. It opened up the conversation. I think as this ball rolls forward, I mean, this genie is so far out of the bottle, it's in another country. The genie has left the bottle, gone to another country. The toothpaste is out of the tube, down the drain, and et cetera. All those cliches. I mean, this is moving forward. I think it's a juggernaut. It's at the speed of government. We'll see how fast that goes, but it ain't going back. Come on, you guys, none of this is going back to the way it was before, even yesterday, so this is going forward. And I think that's bodes very well for people with experiences. Certainly the whistleblowers. Well, if you could say what's the one most positive thing to come out of today, I think it's paving the way for more whistleblowers to come forward and giving the government a to-do list. So I think the to-do list, the actionable items, combined with definitely paving the way and encouraging whistleblowers, all those people who said, I'm going to see how these guys are treated, they're going to come forward. They're going to feel much more safe about it now.
Okay, well, we have a job. We have a job, and the
advocacy,
job is
we got to have
the
a
advocacy is a job, but there are other advocacy, or we're not going to get anywhere. Mike Turner, who represents the district that has Right Pat and et cetera in it, he got $100,000 from Lockheed Martin, et cetera, and it's in that area for his last election, and he's got more money coming in, and he is opposing putting any of these legislations in these acts, and he can get in the way right by himself. We've got to figure out a way to overcome this guy.
Yeah, we need to fight now. I mean, that's my feeling, is we need to be strategic. We need to have a plan. When I was working in homelessness before, I mean, we had a national call that we got in every month to ensure our grant money came through. And we need to establish a national effort for experiencers to get on something like that, get on the bandwagon, and we need to lead it. So I'm really aggressive. And I think that activism needs to start now while the door is opening and not stop.
Now's the time, because the legislation.
Law.
If we don't act like tomorrow, the legislation won't happen.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right.
We can't be passive. We can't be on the sideline. We have to be the ones that move it. Grassroots, period.
Well, I mean, but who do you talk to? Because
you call the congressman's office.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to do an actual plan and do a plan of attack, and we need to implement it, and we need to work together.
Talk to every MUFON person in Ohio. Talk to every experiencer in that district in Ohio, and have them call the congressman's office.
Right. Yes, exactly. And we need to send people the call letters, give them the information, show them what the strategy looks like, give them steps 1, 2, 3, easy, and just push it hard. That's my feeling anyway.
Do you think the Congress people are ready for alien abductions, Courtney? 40
We're not
seconds.
talking
No, but I think we have to make them aware of experiencer rights. And I think that we need to make them aware of what experiencers are going through. We need to validate it. We need to not question it anymore. Just like the materialistic part of this, we need to show that there's a psychology behind this. There's physicality behind it. There's emotional. It's a psycho-spiritual spectrum that experiencers are going through. And we need to educate them about that and move forward on it quickly.
We certainly need to educate them about the government involvement.
And that's also true for like the military guys having sightings. They go through emotional stuff, physical stuff. They go through, you know, stress.
So do pilots, so do law enforcement. I mean, responders.
Yeah. You know.
And I'm going to get you ladies to just quiet right there for a minute, because when we return, it's about the craft, it's about the bodies, and it's about where they're hiding on Spaced Out Radio as this special panel continues on the UFO hearings tonight.
I said this will be fun.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I have the worst case of craving for pizza right
And
now.
and obviously, Courtney, what you were just saying, I was not so much.
Well, you and I are in lockstep.
In that what I was going to start, but it's most like, how do we perceive this? Because I hadn't gotten that far down the road. It was more like I just talked to major abduction researchers to say, hey, we need to join together to do something and know how we're going to respond as disclosure goes forward. And this was something I started to think of like 2 years ago. And
yes, I know you have a plan.
Well, no, I don't have a plan. That's what I'm saying. What I had was an idea that it needed to be done. I have no idea how to do it, but at least, you know, we got smart brains in UAP.
Well, I think that's how I can help, because I used to work on national housing advocacy, and I used to work with corporations, big corporations, to do that work. And so I think we can just take that model and use it for experiencer issues.
And even if it just starts, because that was my concern, is starting with, how do we react as a community once we get the media attention like we're starting to get now? So we're kind of like a little bit behind in doing this then, because
we have to talk about what we want. Yeah, we have to talk about what we want and what we want to accomplish.
Have our talking points kind of shared with the different experiencer community leaders to say, at least let's be on the same page with how we approach this and how we talk about it. Dave, like you said, to stay away from the tinfoil hat wearing stuff. You know, we got to have our talking points grounded. And
we might not agree about everything. I mean, one organization might not agree with everything the other one does, but we'll need to be able to align on certain things and like, you know, move together.
Basics, the basic facts, the basic evidence, the basic traits, the basic experiences, the basic medical and psychological reactions, and, you know, just again, this core of basics. So, because when everyone knows, when you do a media interview or whatever, you get 20 seconds, you know, so stick to your basics. Like, that's one thing I can say about hearing Burchett in every interview. I now know Burchett'S spiel. I know he's going to say in every interview, because it's the rewording of the same stuff. You know, he's got his talking points, and it's like, okay, that's what a pro does. You have your talking points. So we need to act like we're politicians, you know, and have our talking points.
We need our version of Frank Luntz. We need our version of Frank Luntz for the experiencers to be able to take those sound bites, and that's what they hear, and just, you know, use it over and over
and repeat
and get the points across.
Community. This is how we're representing the community as a whole. Like you said, there can be individual things that we'll disagree on. That's fine. But at least say, hey, at least when it comes to media and attention, we're kind of on the same page. See, that's
absolutely.
You and I are in agreement here. So when we'll talk about
we're in lockstep on a lot of things, actually.
Yeah, good. Okay, good. Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that. I was questioning whether I was involved in UAP men, you know, etc. It's a long story, but that makes me feel like, okay, now I'm reinvigorated to say.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't been on the last couple calls because I've been traveling. I traveled from Alaska to Pennsylvania, so I missed the last call.
Well, I want to get back on the calls, but I got to talk to some people involved about that. So.
Okay.
At least I know I've got you as an advocate.
Yeah.
That's good to
We're
know.
very aligned in our vision of
Well, I just think,
political action.
this is moving forward. We just need to make sure that the witnesses and abductees, contactees, all the, whatever, that our rights are protected, that we have spokespeople, that we need to be a movement. We do.
Yes, it is a movement.
It is.
It's definitely happening. I saw people talking about deals. There was moving and shaking going on outside, and I was hearing conversations about investments and things. And I was like, okay, this is good to be a fly on the wall and hearing the way things are moving and the way people are shaping their organizations and the money that's being invested. So yes, there's a lot going on, and there is money being invested.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And we had, the abduction community had some kind of spokespeople by default before, who have died or passed, so it's a matter of who's kind of that person now. And maybe it's not one person, maybe we make it a team of people,
Yeah, it's definitely different groups of people, and they have leadership.
Is that my computer doing weird stuff, or is Bob's computer doing weird stuff?
Bob's fast forwarding. Bob's on like 500x.
What is going on? Something about your system is wigging.
Hey guys, 2 seconds here. 2 seconds. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Science Bob McGuire, Melinda Leslie, Courtney Marchesani is here. We're talking about the UFO hearings. And once again, Science Bob, I want to start with you on this one. We have David Grush talking about the bodies, the craft, and where they're hiding. Now, he didn't go public and state where the bodies and the craft are, because we do know, we can confirm, they are in the hands of private contractors. Now, he said he would discuss that in a skiff with the politicians in the hearings. To me, this is the juice. This is what we were waiting for. And Bob, I want to get your reaction to David Grush still standing and steaming ahead that the United States government and military and its private military contractors are in the presence of UFOs, both crashed and fully intact, as well as their pilots.
Okay, so Dave tells the narrative he and Ross built was really good. So Dave said, I took 4 years putting this together with the accesses he had without trying to alarm the people on the other end so he could continue to dig. And he dug until he had 40 witnesses, some willing, some unwilling. And those 40 witnesses he put into his report of what he thought was illegality and hidden stuff and crimes and so forth to the Inspector General of DOD, and then got persecuted. So he went to the Inspector General of the IC, and they found he had been persecuted and his evidence was credible. So the Inspector General of the IC supported his contention that he was being persecuted for being a whistleblower, and that his stories were credible, and he had presented receipts that they had checked out. And we know from other reporting that the Inspector General talked to other people that backed up Grush's story, because the Inspector General took what Grush gave him and they started going down the rabbit holes, and they found other people. And these other people, unknown to Grush, backed up his story. So the Inspector General issued a report that went to Congress with all of this classified information. And as soon as that report landed, that's when Congress started to get really, really active in writing this legislation. Now, we just got to work a way to get Turner out of the way and get the Schumer amendment passed through the National Defense Authorization Act. We need to beg and talk the GOP in the House into not loading up the National Defense Authorization with a bunch of other junk, and just to let it go through clean, so that we get this stuff in, because we need it. We need this stuff to get through and Biden to sign it before we get anything.
And I agree with you, Bob. I do agree. But I mean, the fact that there are American companies out there right now who maybe in test tubes have parts of alien creatures. You know, it reminds me of Independence Day, where they go into Area 51 into the underground, and here are the aliens in the test tubes that are alive. We don't know. We could have alive aliens in some research facility that is, you know, protected by machine guns and you know, whatever it may be. We may have that right now.
Well, it opens up the door to what Chris was talking about. Go ahead, Bob.
No, go ahead, Melinda.
Well, I'm a MILAB. I've worked with well over 100 people with MILAB cases, probably 200. When I say work with, I mean interviewed them extensively, gathered their evidence that they had it, et cetera, et cetera. And it is very common in MILAB cases for people to see it's, I don't care how crazy this sounds to everyone out there, because I was thinking today, like all the next steps for ufology, like where do we go as this moves forward? What do we get into next? And there's this whole list of stuff. I mean, this isn't like, oh, it's disclosure. This isn't the end. This is the beginning of a long road. We all know that. Okay, so, but one of the things is, and this is way down the road, because you got to get into abductions before you even get into this. But not only did the MILABs happen, the harassment and surveillance of the abductees, just like the witnesses, the military witnesses getting the harassment we heard so much about today, the abductees do. But on top of that, then abductees in their experiences at the most bizarre end, if you will, but I know 100 people that have, or more, that have had this happen, where they have seen humans and military working together in underground bases. And at that point, we're not
talking about... That was
question.
That was asked today. I don't know if you picked up on that, but that was a question that was asked by one of the committee members. Yeah.
And
she said, do we have a deal between our government and, you know, these non-human intelligence? And he said he couldn't comment on
that. I certainly did. I was like, whoa.
Melinda, one at a time, because otherwise it bleeds into the audio. So Courtney,
I just want to add one other thing. I just wanted to add one other thing, and this is for Chris, because Chris isn't here. But I think one of the things he would say if he were here, considering the point he brought up about the Italian crash, is he would talk about the Santilli video, right? And he would talk about some of this historical stuff that has been pretty much panned or, you know, negated as evidence because it's disinformation or whatever. So I'm just saying that for Chris's sake, because I think he would say something like that if he were here.
Yes. Now, Melinda, you were wanted to follow up.
Well, no. My point was just I wanted to chime in and go, we're not talking about beings in test tubes. I mean, yeah, maybe at some level, some of that exists, or, you know, parts of bodies. Sure. Why not? Of course, if these things crash, there's going to be parts. There might be goo splattered that they gather, whatever, you know. But I can also say from the MILAB cases, unequivocally, there are ETs and humans working together in these underground bases. And I don't expect this disclosure process to take us there, at least not for a very, very long time. That would be a long way down the road. But I think for the UFO community to do this less hemming and hawing about, oh, we wonder if. No, there's no wonder. Listen to, I can trot out 100 people to share cases, and they're detailed cases of ETs and humans working together, detailed accounts. And so it's like, you guys, we need to get there as a community. I'm not saying disclosure. I'm just saying as a community to realize what's really known, because you're going to, with getting into where are the bodies, where are the craft. In these MILAB cases, we see the craft and the bodies. They're in these underground installations. Then it gets into, well, maybe we need to question who's managing these underground installations. Now there's a question. I think it came up today. It's called DOE.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
There was a pass. There was a pass by it, and it was uncomfortable, but it was definitely brought about. And what about this other issue that has been kind of on the fringe in the research community? But what about the talk of the cataclysm and the intelligence community pushing some of this, because some of the witnesses and some of the experiencers are saying that they've been receiving messages from non-human intelligence about an event, and that some of this disclosure is being pushed because of this event. And so I've heard about it in multiple circles, and intelligence community people have said, yes, this is something we're concerned about, but I don't think anybody is saying, definitively what that is, or what the year is, or anything. So
God, I'm tired. I'm pulling a blank. He's been on your show a million times. He pulled out of the field for a little while, and that was his whole story. Oh, come on, Dave. He's a friend of ours.
Give us an association, Melinda. Come on. We'll work it as a group.
Was that your party in Vegas? Was it your party in Vegas?
Oh, Sean Cahill?
No.
John Ramirez?
Ramirez. Thank you. I just pulled a blank. I'm
Ramirez.
sorry, Scott, if you're listening. I'm so sorry. I'm just very tired. I got up at
It's
6
okay.
o'clock this morning. I usually get up at 9 at the earliest, Okay, but John Ramirez, was his whole thing, and that's why he pulled out of the field. He says, "I've done my job. We're here. I don't need to be saying this right now. If I need to say more, I'll come back out." That was kind of what his whole story was. And he was saying, yes, there's this thing, and was it 2027? I guess is the date that everyone talks about. And I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I am not getting anything from the ETs per se saying that. But I know a lot of people are. And this is talked about quite often for instance, I'm very involved in Yvonne Smith's CERO, Close Encounter Resource Organization, and it's a big conversation amongst them. So I do know it's something that's alive and well in the community. And again, the theory is that maybe this is somewhat pushing this disclosure stuff. I just have a lot of questions about that because I don't know. If anyone does,
that's me questioning too as well.
Where are the bodies? What happens to these companies, Bob?
I just said they're working with the military and underground bases.
They're in the underground bases, Dave.
It's dumb. It's dumb. It's very dumb, Dave. It's very dumb. It's very D-U-M-B dumb. Deep underground military bases.
Let me finish the question here before I get trampled here. Okay. What happens, Bob, what happens to a company? Let's just say it's Bob's Biolab. And Bob's Biolab has alien material from these entities, shall we say. Okay. What happens if your name comes out in public that you are in possession of alien bodies?
So every possible part of government that deals with virology and bacteria and life forms and all this other stuff is going to swoop in to make sure you followed all the protocols, and they're going to take it away from them because they haven't.
There you go.
I mean, I thought that was intimated today with the Holmgren law was what he was talking about. Like they're going to shut stuff down if they don't get access and they don't open up the SCIF so they can have limited access to David Grush so that they can get the information. They're talking about pressing that into service. And that's a threat.
And a good one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so could we or could any of these companies come out and there's probably dozens that have these alien biological beings with them. I hate the term NHI, by the way. I don't know. It doesn't resonate with me.
EBE. There's an old term. Trying to bring
There's
that
an old
back.
term. But could any of these companies come out publicly and state that we are in possession of anomalous beings?
They can, and the government's going to swoop in and take them. But look,
Yeah.
I think what's going on, because it's what I've been told is going on, that they are hiding and moving everything as fast as they can to try to protect the asset. We've given them a year's warning that this is coming, and they keep delaying so they don't know how to move the big ones, the monster size craft, and so they got to figure out what to do. I've been told. I'm going to tell you what I was told. I'm just, I'm not saying it's true, but I'm going to tell you what I was told by someone I trust, and I hope they'd have good information. They're just going to take them off and fly them up and put them in orbit.
They're going to take what up, fly them up, and put them in orbit?
They're going to take the big craft that are too big to hide out of the hiding place and fly them into orbit.
Well, if they can be flown.
Apparently, that's what they're claiming.
Wow.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, there's so many maybes in this. We can speculate to the ends of the earth, but
I just don't think I think it's impossible for them to clean up every little piece of this. So something will be found, and it'll lead to the door breaking open.
Well, and it sounds like, because people coming forward to Grush, and if this, as I said earlier, if this encourages the whistleblowers, which I think it will, you're going to have more people in these programs coming forward. If Grush has already had 40 or whatever,
What they're waiting on. Look,
pour out real quick.
Grush had all of his accesses removed. And so these people are going to see if he gets his accesses restored.
Oh.
Are we going to see Susan Goff, the PR person of the Pentagon and all the secrets, go after David Grush the way she seemed to go after Lou Elizondo?
Yes, I'm sure she's going to go after him.
She's already doing that.
She's going to marshal all of her resources.
One at a time, please, guys. Courtney.
Go ahead, Melinda.
You sure? No, I just was saying.
I yield, Melinda.
She already put out stuff today. That's all. She already put out stuff. Not against Grush, but
fill us in here. What she put out.
I need to look it up. See what she said. Bob, do you remember? Did you see what she put out today?
No, I didn't see it.
Oh, shit. Someone who's listening
Hit the beeper, Dave. Hit the beeper.
Someone who's listening to us put it into the comments, because I don't remember what she said.
Okay, well, since we got 4 minutes to go here, 4.5 minutes to go before we get to the top of the hour, do we see, Courtney or anybody on the panel, do we see Susan Goff and the Pentagon start erasing David Grush the way they started erasing emails of Lou Elizondo?
Yes.
And those are
he's obviously already got his complaint. Yeah, but he's already got his complaint in. So in that sense, he's maybe more ahead of where Lou Elizondo was, because he's happened after he left, and the retaliation happened after he went to TTSA. So, I mean, and because of the public pressure, that also might put more pressure on her to not be as aggressive, to start erasing things and trying to retaliate. So there's going to be everybody's going to be watching her right now.
Yeah, that's a troublesome. And apparently, thank you to Android in our audience. He said they released a statement tonight to NBC denying that Arrow has any proof of extraterrestrials.
But that's the standard thing. Arrow never had it, and they're never going to get it.
Yeah.
That's a stall. That's a lie. It's misdirection. It's misdirection. Don't look at the football running down the field. Go over there and see the golf ball if you want to see anything. It's misdirection.
It's classic playbook.
Is that, do you think, what's hindering Sean Kirkpatrick, or is Sean Kirkpatrick, the head of Arrow, hindering Sean Kirkpatrick?
The way he acted on ABC, the ton of bricks is falling down on his head, because he is not meeting their expectations of keeping this covered up.
I think his
They need
days
to
are
get him out.
Yeah.
Yeah. They need to replace him.
I think today.
What did Dave Grush say? Dave Grush said Sean Kirkpatrick. He didn't use these words, but here's what he meant. Sean Kirkpatrick went in front of the Senate Armed Services Committee's team that interviewed him and lied.
Yeah.
And he gave him the information.
And that's a crime.
He gave him the information. Yes. And he said he never called me back.
All those representatives today were really pissed off, and there were times when either Kirkpatrick was mentioned or not mentioned, but it was implied, and you could tell. Like, I thought they're all ready to just go, no, But that's a Senate move, isn't it, Bob? It's not a Congress move?
No, it's both of them. They both have to sign off on stuff, and both of them can go after him for lying.
And while they weren't there today, what happened today got watched by all the senators too, no doubt,
Oh yeah.
So they're going to see this. So I think, I don't know. I expect a lot of different things to start happening.
I expected Kirkpatrick not to be there because he knew Grush was going to call him out, and he did.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's only a good thing for ufology when your top ufologist in the United States government is in denial, acting like Seth Stoshak for 40 years, leading SETI.
These guys make Seth look mild.
So they're doing misdirection. We have no evidence inside of Arrow, the confirmed evidence of extraterrestrial stuff, and no one knows whether no one outside knows whether it's extraterrestrial or not. We just want them to admit it's anomalous and real, and they're working on it.
Excellent point.
It's all misdirection. Yes. That's what it's the standard misdirection game. It's lying by omission.
1 minute to go here. I'll get a statement from each and every one of you. Bob, where does it go from here?
We have to get everybody and their brother pressuring Mike Turner to pass the Schumer amendment in the House version of the bill and let it go through without a lot of crap on it.
Courtney?
That's what we have. That's our target, is the Schumer amendment. Don't let it drop. Keep your eye on the ball. Get with your local people and do grassroots, period. Get it through.
Everyone in the
and Melinda, I figured I'd save it for you for last, my dear. Best for last.
I froze up. Darn it.
Well, anyway, so Turner already got in the way of the really good amendment of the last version. So he's already done it. We need to stop him.
That we do. And you know what? I think that today I was expecting a nothing burger. We got a quarter pounder with cheese today.
Yep.
Maybe a few onions on there as well. So we should be pretty happy.
Didn't want me to respond, apparently. Froze up.
Apparently not. But you know what? I think it was a good day, and I want to say thank you, Melinda Leslie, Science Bob, Courtney, and Chris Rutkowski, who was with us earlier for an amazing panel on breaking down the latest UFO hearings. And when the next ones happen, we will do another panel again to make sure we keep all of you up to date with what's happening in the UFO world. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, yeah, we got room for them too. Good night. That's good stuff, people. That's good stuff right there. Acting like a bunch of good Canadian kids, just bringing it to the game.
I was going to encourage everyone, go out and celebrate. Tonight was historic. That's what I was going to say. I was going to say tonight's historic. Go celebrate, and for all experiencers out there to feel supported and celebrate, because this is a positive thing for all of us. And I wish I said that, but my computer froze up. I'm like, no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did Steve Bassett smile once?
He did. When he came through those tunnels and he was with Danny Sheehan, his face was all lit up. It was unreal. It was surreal. Yeah. The whole thing.
When he got into his chair, I don't think I saw a smile on his face.
I hope they were. Were people high-fiving?
Yeah, no, I'm sure that he was probably concentrating and fixated and focused. But when we were in the hall, he was just all ear to ear grinning.
That's great.
Thank you, Doug. Was it a good show, Dave? Were we a good show?
Hey, when the Doug Shelby says it's a good show, it's a good show.
Okay, good. Good.
We've got to get the Schumer amendment passed. We got to.
I agree. We're going to do it.
If people care, they got to help.
I may have.
But even with that guy being against it, we're talking the Senate and the House. I think this is overwhelmingly.
But look, in the House, the committee chairman is God Almighty.
Oh.
It ain't getting past him if he doesn't want it to get past him.
It's going to be hard work.
You're going to have to work on him. He has to feel pressure or he won't do it.
Yes.
Because his donors don't want him to do it.
So even if the majority votes it,
yeah,
because it won't go up for vote.
No, he won't even put it up for a vote. He schedules the votes,
which is what he did already to Tim's bill.
Yep, he killed it quick.
There are ways.
I got.
Yeah, I have a voodoo doll and pins. We could start. Black magic's not what you had in mind. No, I said when there were ways I got creative.
I'm getting punchy. All right, you guys.
Shame on me.
If you guys hang out, that's you're more than welcome to. We're just
I'm going to bed.
But
yeah, I'm going to bed too. Thanks, guys. That was really fun.
See ya.
I've been up since 6. I don't even know what time it is.
Good night, Dave.
Me too. I've been up early too. I'll see you next time.
Good night,
bye, guys.
See you guys. Bye.
Glad we gave you a good show, Dave. That was super fun.
Oh, that was awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Melinda. We love you, dear.
I love you too. Thanks for having me on.
Bye bye. Goodbye. Good night, sweet darling. It's time to go. Oh, yeah. I bet you Derek Galloway was a real Bowser fan on Sha Na Na. Jerry Carter, what's happening? Uh-huh. Amy Vegas. Oh. Derek Galloway was totally Bowser. Peter Panda, thank you, man. Glad we could be here for you. Glad we could do it, guys. This was a really, really good show, and came together. And I was so excited that Courtney got a hold of me yesterday, and she's like, dude, I want to come on your show. I'm going to be here. And afterwards, I'm going to be taking notes. And afterwards, I'm coming on your show. And I'm like, are you serious? She's like, yeah, I'm serious. I'm like, hell yeah, you are. Hell yeah. So I'm very proud that Courtney was able to join us, to have somebody who was there. Not everybody got that, but we were able to get that. You know, that I love it when we can get that inside intel. You know, last time we had Dan Warren. Dan Warren wanted to come on tonight as well, but he was like really tired and worn out. So he's like, Dave, can I take a rain check? I said, absolutely, because Dan has always been really good to us. And he is just he's just one of the best people in ufology when it comes to that. So I said, no problem, because I knew we had Courtney in the bag. So that worked out. Yeah, that worked out real well. So I'm glad you guys all got a good lesson like I did today about what went on. You know, it was a big day for ufology. I don't normally say that. You know, you guys know I've hated these hearings, and I've been so disappointed with these hearings overall that I mean, even yesterday or Monday when we were talking to Walter Bosley, I thought this was going to be another waste of time, especially when I saw, you know, David Fravor and Ryan Graves. No offense to those gentlemen. When I saw their names on there, I'm like, geez, like, come on. Do we really need to be bragging up people whose stories are 6 years old? I brought that up tonight. You know, I think it's a legitimate question. And you know what? They did a bang up job. And I'm proud to say I was wrong. And that's the point of it, is we have to be able to say when we're right and when we're wrong, and be able to man up, balls up, whatever you want to call it, and say when you're wrong, you're wrong. And I was wrong on that one. I thought today was great. Okay? I thought today was a step forward. And it was so much more a step forward than we're used to. I think we're really caught off guard, and we haven't really fully digested the magnitude of what happened today. There were a lot of people of power within Congress who got a big look at the bullshit that we have been under with ufology, stuff that we have been trying to expose for years. And they finally saw it for themselves. And they looked mortified that this was going on. Now, I'm not saying they're going to do anything about it. You know, I'm not saying they're going to do anything about it. But at least the bug is in their ears. Like, look, people, there's some serious military-industrial complex issues that could come out of this. Okay? And there are people who are paid a lot of money who are making decisions on this now. Okay? And decisions that we will never be privy to. So the idea that this is over is far from it. All right? That is the tough part for all of us. All right? That is the tough part for all of us. And that is something we need to prepare for, because it's coming. There is no choice anymore. It's coming. I'm happy I was wrong. I'm very happy I was wrong. I thought Burchett did very well, Paramarv. I really did. I thought he came at it exactly the way he was going to. He asked tough questions. Okay. He kept that chip on his shoulder, and we needed that. We needed that from him. We won't see what happens to the stock market on this until aliens actually arrive. That's when we'll see the stock market figure itself out there. I think that there were I think that there were. I don't know how AOC ended up there. That's the one that really shocked me. Both her and Matt Gaetz really shocked me today that they were involved in this. But you know what? Good on them for it. Good on them for it. And I think that this topic, as it continues to gain momentum, is going to see bigger names with pull, okay, who have opened their minds and eyes and ears to the fact that ufology should be called UFO BS, because there's a lot of UFO bullshit out there right now, and they're just getting a taste of it. I mean, a lot of it, I'll be honest with you, was foreign to me, being Canadian. I don't understand how the American law works on certain things. But I thought it was great. And you notice it's the bigger names that we're used to seeing in the media who are getting involved with this. Good night, Dr. Steers. Let's talk soon, my friend. So I think it's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful what happened here today. We should all be proud that we lived it. The ball, in my opinion, finally got rolling. No, I didn't, Derek Galloway. Close, though. Close. Guys, remember, you heard it here first. Okay? This is the first public war, to use that word, that we have seen between politicians and the military industrial complex. UFOs are the ones taking on the military industrial complex. Who had that on their bingo card? This isn't just about UFOs, people. This got bigger. Excuse me. No, it's not a THC vape. This got bigger today. Okay. This got bigger. This is about the military industrial complex not wanting to play the UFO game with the public and the military. Okay? This is what it's about. Okay? This is larger than what we're thinking here. We're just not pointing it out. And this is about to get uglier. At least in my opinion. Wait 2 seconds here. So what do you guys think? Is it more than just UFOs? This is why I've been adamant to you guys. Be careful who you support in this. There's a major game being played here. Okay? There's a major game being played here. And we don't know who's on anyone's side. Okay? Whether it's Galileo, Enigma Labs, NASA, SCU, MUFON, okay, and all of these other fringe groups that are popping up out of nowhere to try and get disclosure for dollars. You, as a listener, as an experiencer, as an eyewitness, whatever you may be, you need to keep that in the back of your mind that we aren't close to getting to the truth yet. The door is open. That's a good thing. But we're nowhere close to getting to what the truth is. We got to hope that the momentum continues to send this UFO ball of cheese down the hill so it gets running faster and faster and faster. So nobody can catch up with it. Then it takes on a life of its own. All right? That's what we need. That's what we need to happen. 1 second here. Tomorrow night on the show, Varla Ventura is back for Our Cryptid World, so we'll have some interesting conversations about that. All kinds of cryptid stuff that you love and I love. And so we'll get into that tomorrow. And yeah. 1 second here. Big thank you tonight to Louie and Jeremy for multiple super chats. Robert, Stephen, Pam H, Boo, Kira, Ken, Debster, Gizmo, Mennonite Abe, Lori, W. Decker, Charles, Science Bob, Brian Bowden ×2, Surf Jer, CS, La 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 La, Bright, Big J, T-Bone, and Jeff. Thank you for the love, everyone. I'm going to send you guys home. You guys get to bed tonight, and let's see what comes out tomorrow. Should have a lot of fun with Varla, as we usually do. We'll see you then. Good night.
Healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.